Welcome to the Newsome MMA podcast, partnered with Concussion Pro 1, the world's first dedicated concussion supplement. I'm your host as always, Newsome, with your co-host John, and we're back once again to break down UFC on ESPN Plus 2, going down on Saturday night in Fortaleza, Brazil. For anybody that's wondering why this podcast is late this week, thank John, who's come down with a severe case of man flu. John, are you with us?
I'm here. I'm not too bad. I'm a little bit under the weather. So if all goes quietly, send for help immediately.
Yeah, you sound massively enthused, man. But man, I'm enthused. I love these Brazilian cards. I say it every time we break one
Definitely.
down. And we have a Nurmagomedov on it too. So I'm excited, bro. First of all, I just want to mention the premium bets from Newsome MMA. We have an amazing offer right now for new members. For anybody that purchases the silver membership, which is the 6 months term, throughout January, you'll receive 3 months absolutely free, which will see you through till September. Right now is a great time to jump on board too, as my form is on point. There's a 7-fight card winning streak for 25 units of profit, over a 60% return on investment too. But this will be a final week to get your hands on this offer. So to find out more information on this offer, please contact me on any of my social channels, or you can email adam@newsomemma.co.uk. Now, let's break down some fights. UFC Fortaleza, from bottom to top, and in the first fight of the night, we've got Rogerio Bontorin versus the returning Magomed Bibulatov. Now, man, this is not the gimme fight. I think a lot of people were expecting when they saw the name. Obviously, Bontorin, he's come from the Dana White Contender Series Brazil, so a lot of people may not have known the name as soon as they saw it hit the announcement list. So I do think, and myself as well, you automatically assume when you see a name that's not recognizable against a name like Magomed Bibulatov come on board, you think this is probably going to be a gimme fight for Bibulatov, but man, I don't think that's the case here. Rogerio Bontorin looks quite exciting, from what I've seen. He's explosive. He comes forward with power, with commitment to his strikes. He's not afraid to mix it in there, and if things get too rough inside the pocket, he doesn't mind dropping down, shooting for a double leg, trying to take his opponent to the mat. And he's also got decent scrambles as well. We've seen him defend takedowns, or on his way down, using scrambles to gain a more advantageous position on the mat. He's actually a decent grappler. Now, the problem is for him in this fight is I don't see him winning the fight. With all that being said, I see Bibulatov winning the fight. Bibulatov, man, he's technically sound. I know he got beat in his last fight. That was a bad knockout against John Moraga. But man, John Moraga's a good, tough veteran. So I don't hold too much stock in that fight. But Bibulatov's technically sound everywhere. So he's good on his feet. He's quick in and out of range. He angles well. He uses a jab well. He throws combinations, mixing in leg kicks in those combinations as well, which is all the stuff that you're going to look for with a fighter on the feet. And then his ground game as well. He's got good takedowns himself. He can position himself in top control into dominant positions where he's not putting himself in too much danger of potentially getting reversed or swept. I just think the dude's solid everywhere. The one thing two things that Bibulatov's got to be concerned and careful about in this fight. He's got to not get into wild exchanges with Bontorin, because that's what Bontorin's going to want. He's going to want to take that technical sound aspect out of Bibulatov's game. He's going to want to go wild, because that gives him a chance to knock Bibulatov out. And Bibulatov coming off that knockout, some may question his chin. I personally don't, but there is always that concern when a fight is coming off, because it was a pretty bad knockout as well.
Yeah.
The second thing that you've got to consider with this fight is if Bontorin can take Bibulatov down. And that's a big if, but if he can and he gets on top, we haven't really seen too much of Bibulatov off his back. So again, that's a cause for concern should that happen. But A, I don't think Bibulatov's going to get himself into a war again. And B, I'm not convinced Bontorin can take him down either. So I've got Bibulatov in this fight. Bontorin's tough, man. Like in his last fight, he got dropped heavily and then ended up finishing the dude like 30 seconds after. So Bontorin's tough. I don't think Bibulatov's going to get him out, but I do think he's going to win a comfortable decision. So I've got Bibulatov to win by a decision. John, who have you got?
Yeah, I'm the same with you. I've got Bibulatov to win this one. I think from what I've seen of Bontorin, he's most dangerous in those wild exchanges. He's dangerous when he goes to the ground, and his grappling exchanges. Obviously, we saw in the Contender Series he got that win via the standing rear naked choke, but he's also got wins via rear naked choke, a couple of arm bars, heel hook, several rear naked chokes on his record. So he's dangerous when the fight hits the mat, and I think that's what Bibulatov has got to be careful of. But do I think Bontorin can get it down there and keep it down there? If he does, no, is the answer to that one. I think Bibulatov will be the better striker. I think he'll be able to outpoint him again. As you say, he's a tough guy, Bontorin, from what I've seen. So I don't think Bibulatov will be able to get him out of there and finish him. But I think he will do a lot more damage on the feet. I think he'll get in and out. I think he'll be able to stuff the takedowns and keep it standing for the majority of the fight. And yeah, I think as we saw in that Moraga fight, he got caught in just a real wild sloppy exchange against the guy who has got power at that weight, and that cost him. He got caught with that big left hook that put him out. So I don't think he'll be making the same mistakes again. I think he'll be a lot more measured in his approach, a lot less wild in the exchanges. He'll know Bontorin has seen that footage and will try and make it scrappy. But yeah, I think Bibulatov will have his wits about him, and I think he'll just keep this standing, keep it controlled, measured, and get the comfortable decision win.
Awesome, man. In the next fight of the night, we've got a great fight with Ricardo Ramos against Said Nurmagomedov. Now, I mentioned at the start of the podcast, we've got a Nurmagomedov on the card. Now, the first thing that I will say about Said Nurmagomedov is, everybody says this, by the way. Everybody said it this time. Everybody said it last time before his Justin Scoggins fight. Even though he's a Nurmagomedov, he doesn't have that trait what we all come to expect from a Nurmagomedov in regards to being that dominant, powerful, relentless wrestler and grappler inside the cage. Nurmagomedov's a little bit different.
No.
So he tends to have more of a kickboxing base or more of a striking base, throwing flashy strikes, spinning back fists, spinning back kicks, that sort of thing. However, he does have a wrestling game. He does include that in his tool set, and we've seen it I've seen it in previous fights that he will strike, but he does also have a good single leg. He does also have a good double leg, and he also has decent top control as well. But back onto the fight itself, man, this is a great fight, and I feel that there is an edge in it though, and the edge I'm leaning towards Ricardo Ramos. Ramos is someone that I'm a big fan of. You know, I think he's a legit prospect. I think he's got a great future ahead of him. He's still got holes to fill in his game though, for sure. Specifically in his stand-up, and we also may see him up at 145 as well in the future. You know, he's a big 135 for sure. But right now, he's okay. He's okay where he is. I think he is big for the division. There has been questions regarding Ramos's gas tank. I'm not too concerned about that right now in his career, and I'm not concerned about that in this fight even now. Said is not someone that's impressed me massively so far. Now, that's not to say that he can't, you know, in future fights, but I think he's got a lot of stuff to work on. I'll explain what I mean. He doesn't, from a technical aspect, we saw against the Scoggins fight when he's moving forward, when he's throwing strikes, he doesn't really take his head off that centre line too much. He leaves himself to be open to be hit, which Scoggins did hit him a lot and even dropped him momentarily as well. So that just shows the holes are there in his striking. Now, when you have that sort of trait, when you're coming forward in straight lines with your hands not so high, you leave yourself susceptible to shots straight down the middle, and this happens with pretty much every fighter that has these traits in the striking defense. And that's one of Ricardo Ramos's, traits from a striking offense point of view. He's got those shots straight down the middle. They come fast and hard as well. So Saeed's really got to be careful of that. He's got to cover up and he's got to keep his head off that centre line. Otherwise, he is going to get cracked straight down the middle by Ramos. And, it might not end very well for him in that scenario. Now, a couple of other things that Saeed needs to really tighten up in his striking is he throws a lot of spinning attacks, like I've already mentioned, but a lot of them come without conviction. So whether they're too far away or whether he throws them for the sake of throwing them, in regards to him not looking like he's totally convinced that they're going to land or hit hard, which when you're throwing a spinning attack, you've got to be sure, man, that's going to land, because if not, you can get you can get taken down, you can get your back taken halfway through the spin, you can get countered, you'll start being read really easily. I just think that Saeed really needs to either take that out of his game or only throw the spinning attacks when he's 100% sure or very sure that they're going to land. And the other thing that I'm not too sure about with Saeed is he throws a lot of air. So front kicks and, again, the spinning attacks, like I said, I just feel that his strikes lack conviction a lot of the times. And he really needs to tighten that up against someone like Ramos, because he will take advantage of it. Now, I see a couple of path to victories here for Ricardo Ramos. I think he can keep the fight standing for sure. His takedown defense is good. His striking defense is okay. He can be hittable at times himself, but I'm not sure that Saeed's going to cause too many issues on the feet in that respect. I do think that Ramos has to be careful of lack of volume in this fight, because he has been known for, as fights go longer, the volume does come a little less the longer the fight goes on. He can't do that. He's got to pack volume into his strikes throughout the entirety of this fight for however long it goes on. But he's got a good striking game. He's got heavy leg kicks. Like I said, I always like fighters that use leg kicks because they can cause a lot of problems. So I think he can more than handle Saeed on the feet, and I think if Saeed doesn't shoot in and Ramos wants to keep it on the feet, I think Ramos can finish him on the feet. But I have heard in interviews that Ramos is looking to take him to the mat. I always take that with a pinch of salt, though, because I always find it hard to believe a fighter is ever going to give a game plan away in an interview where his opponent has got access to watch that. So, but man, Ricardo Ramos' ground game is unbelievable. It's breathtaking to watch. The scrambles, the submission attempts, the transitions, the passing from position to position, the balance in doing that, the ability to get himself out of bad spots when he's in trouble, he's unbelievable. The dude's a Brazilian wrestling champion. He's a legit grappler, man. I'm telling you, he's so good. I actually think that Saeed's got a decent wrestling game. I don't think it's, like I've already mentioned, as good as someone like Khabib or Abubacar Nurmagomedov, but his grappling game is good. I just don't think he's going to be able to hold Ramos down if he goes to his grappling and takes him and does manage to take him down. And bear in mind, Ramos, in my opinion, beat Kang because of that second round when Ramos was on his back, just landing shots from bottom. So I think this is a good fight for Ramos to get a win. I think he's a legit prospect. It is a good thing that Saeed's coming up to 135 as well. Obviously, he was at flyweight for his last fight. I think the division suits him better. I think it is going to be a good fight, but I think Ramos just beats him in pretty much every area. So I actually think Ramos. You know what? I don't know. I think Ramos finishes him. I don't know whether he finishes him on the feet or on the floor. That all depends on Saeed and where he goes. I think the finish will ultimately depend on what Saeed wants to do and what his game plan is. So I've got Ricardo Ramos by finish. What about you, John?
Yeah, I think you've covered pretty much all the bases there. Ricardo Ramos, he's an exciting guy, like you say, especially on the ground. We saw that in the Ayman Zahabi fight back at UFC 217. There was some fantastic scrambles between the two in that scrap, and then he ended up absolutely knocking Zahabi the hell out with that spinning back elbow as well, which was absolutely brutal. And then he followed that up with the win over Kyung Ho Kang, got that split decision. he can be a little bit erratic with his striking. We saw that in the Zahabi fight, but I think I think he attempted that spinning back elbow about 3 or 4 times before he eventually landed the one that put Zahabi out. But yeah, that seems to be tightening up all the time. As you've mentioned, he's extremely dangerous on the ground. He's got beautifully smooth transitions, searching for those submissions all the time. Nurmagomedov, you cover pretty much everything with this. With the Scoggins fight, I was really looking forward to, because I'd only seen bits and bobs of him throughout his career previously before he joined the UFC. And that Scoggins fight, he won a very close split decision. A lot of people thought he lost that fight, and I can see why. And I think you covered it perfectly when you say that he throws a lot of shots at air. It's as though he's just trying to tease the judges into making him think that he's like applying pressure and throwing shots at his opponent. But yeah, a lot of the time he does lack conviction, and it's as though he's just trying to. I don't even know if he's trying to keep his opponent at range or what. But yeah, you can tell he's not. A lot of the time he's not fully committed to his strikes, and yeah, that does worry me. And I don't think he possesses the ability to stop Ramos as well. When you look through his record, I think he's only got a couple of stoppage wins on his record. I mean, he's got that a guillotine choke, and another stoppage was via doctor stoppage in the first round, and then you're going all the way back to like 2013, then when he was when he was finishing people. So I don't think he's got the capabilities to finish Ramos, who's a tough guy. On the other hand, I do think Ramos has the ability to stop Nurmagomedov, and that is ultimately what I think will happen. Now, I think he can get finishes late on in fights. I know you mentioned about the gas tank, but we saw in that Zahabi fight, that was in the third round, and the dude was still throwing power and enough power to put Zahabi out for about 10 minutes. And
just to mention there as well, just really quickly, because I have seen a lot of people concerned with Ramos in the third round of his fights. But what you've got to consider is whether you believe that Ramos will be less efficient in round 3. The dude's 3-0 on the scorecards, and he's got 2 of his stoppage wins via stoppages in the third round as well. So this is stuff you've got to take into consideration. You know, even let's say hypothetically he is very tired in every third round in the fight, which I don't believe, but you know, on the hypothetical scenario he still manages to get the decision. You know, he hasn't lost a decision. So
exactly, spot on. I mean, I think as well this fight, I don't think Nurmagomedov will. As we saw in the Scoggins fight, they were both relatively inactive. I know they both Scoggins quite a counter striker and with that karate style, and yeah, there wasn't a great deal of activity. So I don't really worry about Ramos and Nurmagomedov pushing the pace on him and really tiring him. Like you just say, he on the scorecards he wins. He's got finishes in round 3 against Zahabi. He got a rear naked choke in round 2. He's won by triangle in round 3 earlier on in his career. And yeah, for me that's not a big worry. And yeah, I really like this guy. I think he's got great potential. I believe he was training Alpha Male for a bit for his last fight as well, if I remember correctly, which I think is a great direction to go in as well. I don't think he's trained there for this camp from what I've seen, but
no, he's 2 hours away from Fortaleza, so he's just said it didn't make sense.
No need. Yeah, but obviously going forward in his career, I think that's a good direction to go. Got great wrestlers there, and yeah, I think that'll really suit his style. But yeah, I'm going with Ramos in this fight. I think he will stop Nurmagomedov. I think it will be later in round 2 or early in round 3 as well. I think the first round will be a bit of a feeling out process, and then yeah, I think he'll start to push on in the second round, and yeah, I've got Ramos to win this via a stoppage as well.
Awesome, man. And in the next fight, it's a bit of a surprising fight. This one with two names coming in that I don't think many people would have recognised. I mean, I didn't personally. We've got Geraldo de Freitas versus Felipe Colares. Now, I've watched tape on these guys, and man, this is actually going to be a really good fight. Both fighters are pretty solid. Colares is unbeaten as well. They both got experience in a promotion I'm a huge fan of in Jungle Fight. Colares more experience in Jungle Fight, but man, that promotion's produced some absolute corking stars for us. You know, Paulo Costa, Davison Alcantara. So, you know, and there will be more as well off the top of my head. I can't think, but man, Jungle Fight's a really good promotion to be pushed into the UFC from, because these fighters tend to go on to do great things. So, man, it's a great fight. They're both really good striking. They're both aggressive. They both like to come forward. They've both got decent takedown defense. They've both got decent takedown offense. Colares in particular manages to throw a bit of judo in there as well when he's clinched up, and gets takedowns in via some really unorthodox methods and techniques. You'll know what I mean if you go and watch tape on him. He's, like I say, he's exciting, but so is de Freitas. You know, they're both really, really good, man. And it's an interesting fight. I think that both of them are going to be problems for opponents further down the line. I think they'll both stay in the UFC. I think they both look UFC caliber. Obviously, we will see when the debut isn't fighting debut and one of them fights a veteran. But I think they're both good enough to stay in the UFC. I think they both will excite Dana White and Sean Shelby. And they're both very, like I said, they're both very, very similar. I think they're going to be problems for other people further down the line. I just don't think they're going to be too much of a problem for each other. I think it's going to be one of those fights where they're going to be nullified in regards to what each are trying to do. I think when one tries to go for a takedown, I think the other will be able to defend it relatively easily. Or if they do get taken down, pop straight back up. I think they're both going to be taking it in turns in regards to who's the aggressor and who's on the back foot. I think they'll both have moments in this fight. I think it's going to go to a decision, man, and it's almost really difficult to call because they are both so alike. So I'm actually going to go for the guy that's unbeaten, the guy that's got the more Jungle Fight experience, because I do put a lot of stock into that, believe it or not. And like I say, I think it's going to be a close decision. So I'm going Felipe Colares by decision. John, who have you got?
I'll be completely honest with you. I haven't seen a great deal of either of these two guys. I saw a little bit of tape, and yeah, you pretty much covered what I saw from them. And like you said, I do think these two guys are going to be a problem for people going forward in the UFC. I mean, Colares is only very young. He's only 24 years old. I think he fights out of Team Nogueira as well. And he's got some good stoppages on his record as well. He's dangerous in those chokes. He's 3 of his fights he's won by he's got arm triangle choke, rear naked choke, and a guillotine choke. He's dangerous when you give him a sniff of a finish. He certainly does take it, and yeah, I think he's definitely one that can disrupt the apple cart in the featherweight division. The Freitas, I haven't seen a great deal on this guy. I know I saw his last fight that he won in the first round by a rear naked choke. He looked good in that fight. Like you say, from what I saw, that they've both got the ability to take their opponents down, and they've got the ability to defend takedowns well. So it will be a close fight where the two of them do nullify each other quite a bit. But from what I've seen, and like I say, he's very limited what I've seen. I do fancy Colares slightly more. I do think he has the slight edge in this one, and I am going to pick him. I'll follow suit with you with the decision, because you've seen a lot more than I have with these two guys. But yeah, I'm going with Colares, but who knows?
Awesome, man. So next fight of the night, we've got Junior Albini taking on the newcomer Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now,
Scary guy.
yeah, definitely a scary guy, man. Full of power, 5 knockouts out of 6 wins. 6'2". He's huge, man, and like I say, he throws with real heat. Now he does look to be more of a striker opposed to a wrestler or a grappler. So I think we will see Rozenstruik look to keep the fight on the feet, potentially trying to land that hard shot that puts Albini out. And man, he's got the power to put Albini out for sure. Just like I think he's got the power to put most out. He's got a good check left hook, lead moving backwards as well. We've seen him knock somebody out clean cold. Can't remember which opponent it was, but
it was his last fight, I believe, against Robert McCarthy.
Yeah, for sure,
flattened him, didn't he?
Yeah, he looks like an absolute beast on the feet, but I do think he's gonna come unstuck and he's gonna run into problems if Albini takes this fight to the mat. Now, Albini hasn't been the type of fighter in the UFC to, look for takedowns and look to really force anything on the ground, but we have seen that from him outside of the UFC in the regionals, where he's looked to get his opponents down to the mat, land some good ground and pound as well. But he's also got 6 submissions to his name as well on his record. So I do think that the path to victory for Albini here is to get Rozenstruik to the mat as quick as possible and to either land that ground and pound for the referee to stop the fight, to come in and save the day, or lock in a submission and get Rozenstruik out of there that way. Now, it's almost, again, like I just said with the Ricardo Ramos and Said Nurmagomedov fight, when I said ultimately it was down to Said in regards to what he wants to do. I almost think that that's the case for Junior Albini in this fight, because if Albini decides to stand and trade, which I think is what I'm pretty confident that's what Rozenstruik is going to look for. I think if he decides to stand with Rozenstruik, I think that he's going to run the risk of getting knocked out. I mean, this is heavyweight. He could definitely knock Rozenstruik out as well. Just I think Rozenstruik packs a little bit more power. The only thing is, Albini's never been knocked out. He's had 18 fights in his career. He's 265-pound man, and he's not been knocked out, which is always, it's always a bit crazy. And I remember Timothy Big Dick Johnson was a lot like that as well. He'd gone through pretty much his entire career without getting knocked out, ironically, until he fought Junior Albini. So Albini packs power, man. I'm not saying he can't knock Rozenstruik out, but I think that if he stays on the feet, I think that favours Rozenstruik more. However, if he uses the opportunity to take this fight to the mat and get Rozenstruik on his back, I think that's where he has a lot of success. Now, I do favour the veteran in this fight, man. The guy that's been in the UFC now numerous times, the guy that's seen the likes of Andrei Arlovsky, Alexei Oleinik, Timothy Big Dick Johnson. This is all really good experience for him. And, I know he lost against Oleinik and Arlovsky, but they're not bad fighters at all. I do favour the veteran in this one. I am going to put my trust in him in regards to him using some fight IQ and actually taking this fight to the mat. If he doesn't, though, he's going to, I'm not going to say he's going to get knocked out, because, like I say, it's tough to say that. The guy's never been knocked out, like I've already mentioned. But I just favour Rozenstruik on the feet. I think Albini's going to look to get the fight to the mat. I think he might look for submissions. Whether he finds one or not, I'm not sure. But I've seen him, he's got decent ground and pound. So I'm going to take Junior Albini to win this fight via TKO. What about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen of Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he's a scary guy. That last fight that we just briefly mentioned against Robert McCarthy, he flatlined him in like 10 seconds into the first round. The guy just came charged at him, and like you say, it was a pretty nothing check left hook, and he was just completely just out cold, face down on the canvas and done. And yeah, he's as you mentioned, 5 of 6 wins of Cumbar stoppage, majority of them first round as well. He did go to a split decision that he won, Rising 10 back in May of 2018 against Andrei Kovalev. So he has gone the distance. But as you mentioned, my worry with these heavyweights coming in, very limited record against guys. I know Albini's currently on a 2-fight skid and losing to Alexei Olenek and Andrei Arlovsky. But he's got that, Albini's got that UFC experience now, and he's been there, he's done it. And like you say, he's been in there with tough guys, Tim Johnson, Arlovsky, Alexei Olenek, and when you look through his career as well, I mean, he's had way more fights than him. I think he's had probably about 3 times as many fights as him in his career. And I think if he can avoid an early onslaught for the first round, I think he can avoid the vast majority of Rozenstruik's danger in those punches. And I think we may see a weakness exposed in his ground game. Like you mentioned, Albini not particularly known for taking it to the ground, but I think it may be a case of I don't want to I don't want to shit on Rozenstruik's abilities because I haven't seen enough of him. I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I just worry that he could be like similar to not to the extremes of Ngannou and Miocic, but when he got taken down to the ground, he just kind of was stuck there, and
Sure.
and I worry about that happening in this fight, even though Albini's not known particularly as a dominant wrestler and top control, but that's my worry with the guy coming off like the regional scene with limited fights, and the vast majority of his fights been explosive knockouts in the first round. If he does get out of that first round, he does get taken down. How will he cope with it? And I don't think he will cope with it, and I think Albini will be able to keep him on the mat and beat him up, and I think that'll then unlock a submission, some kind of choke arm, triangle choke or something along those lines, or maybe he'll give up his back. He'll jump to mount and then eventually give up his back and he'll lock in a rear naked choke, something along those lines. But yeah, I think second round, after Albini's seen out the onslaught of the first, I think he'll take it down to the mat and yeah, just work his way to a dominant position and lock on a submission and get the win.
Awesome, man. So in the next fight of the night, we've got Romero Borella versus the newcomer Taila Santos. Now, Taila Santos is another one that was on Dana White's Contender Series Brazil.
Yeah.
She's a 15-0 Muay Thai fighter. Real good Muay Thai experience. Obviously transitioned over to MMA. It looks like the transition's been pretty decent from what I've seen as well. But man, her striking's really, really good. It's really crisp. She's got a nice educated jab. She uses a jab quite often. Sometimes doubles up on it as well. She's got a good distance management, good in and out movement. She uses angles well. She's got really, really hard leg kicks too, inside and outside. So yeah, that's a huge weapon for her in this fight for sure. Now, although we've seen her defend a few takedowns, I say a few, I've only seen like 1 or 2. They've not been that great entries, and it's been one of those where it's sort of been in the middle of the cage, or opponent's been sort of just below the knee around the ankle, and she's using the head to push down, which I'm not always a massive fan of, pushing the head down to defend takedowns. But that's when they're sort of against the cage and the hands are locked behind the body. But when it's that low on a single leg, pushing the head down, I think it's quite easy to defend a takedown in that position. So basically what I'm trying to get at is I'm not 100% convinced right now that her takedown defense is absolutely on point, and because of that, I don't know whether a get-up game is going to be good. Man, you know, she's Brazilian. A lot of these Brazilians are great grapplers. She might have a really good submission game off her back, you know. But the reason I'm getting at this is because Borella tends to use takedowns in her fights. Striking, I don't think, is on the level of Taila Santos. Whether she knows that yet or not remains to be seen. But if she doesn't know it yet, I'm telling you, give it 60 seconds, she'll be very aware. it's not on that level. And you know that I'm not like you've just said a minute ago. I'm not shitting on Borella. It's just, you know, Taila Santos is a lifetime competitor in Muay Thai. You know, it's going to take a lot to be on that sort of level. I just don't think Borella is. I think if Borella doesn't look for takedowns in this fight, I think it's going to be over very early. Taila Santos has got 10 knockouts in 15 in professional MMA fights, which is an unbelievable record, man. Like, Borella is really gonna have to hunt for takedowns more or less straight off the bat. Otherwise, she's going to be in trouble. She's going to get that leg et up for a start. And if she stays on the feet long enough for a leg to be busted, then you can pretty much count out those takedowns, because those takedowns ain't going to be coming with much conviction with a busted up leg for sure. So I think it's going to be a tough... I think Borella can win this fight. I think she's got to get Taila Santos down early, make her work, potentially make her tired. Just, you know, win that first round and make Taila Santos... If Borella gets her down early and gets her down convincingly, that's gonna, no matter what point no matter what point Taila Santos gets up off that takedown, whether that be straight away or whether that be at the end of the round, if she can't get up at all, it's gonna make her a little more cautious to be throwing some of her shots, for example, like the kicks, because the kicks aren't sort of calf kicks, they're at the top of the thigh, which for me, if Borella's been working on this sort of defense, I think they're at a decent height for the kicks to be caught. They do come fast and hard, so like I said, it's gonna have to be something I think Borella's worked on during training camp. But I just feel that Borella can win this fight, but I don't think she's gonna. You know, she's not this relentless wrestler with a crushing top game or a smooth, slick grappling game and submission, you know, loads of submissions on her. She's not that type of fighter. I think Taila Santos probably will be able to keep the fight stood up for the majority of the fight. Like I say, it's tough to make a call on that, because we've not really seen too much in regards to a takedown defense from solid takedowns, from takedowns where her opponent's got the hands locked behind the butt or behind the legs. You know, it's stuff that we're gonna have to see later down the line. I also think from last week in regards to the Ariane Lipski and Joanne Calderwood fight, I think if that teaches us anything, we've got to be a little bit more cautious with newcomers coming to make the debut in the UFC against fighters that have had 2, 3 or more fights in the UFC already. You know, you picked Lipski, I picked Lipski,
Yeah.
a whole load of other people picked Lipski as well, and she got absolutely dominated. So
Yeah, man.
I do think you've got to be careful for sure, but I think Taila Santos has got a vicious striking game. I think that she probably will be able to keep it standing for the majority of the fight. If she does get taken down, I've got a sneaky feeling she's going to be able to get back up to her feet and just be able to let go on Borella. So I'm taking Taila Santos to win, and you know, I'm going to take her to win by decision. I know she's got a lot of knockouts on her record, but I think UFC debut under the bright lights, if she gets taken down a couple of times, she may become a little bit cautious. That could just see I could just see in that scenario just playing it safe and seeing out a decision victory in a home country and getting another fight under the bright lights in the UFC. So I've got Taila Santos to win by decision. John, who have you got?
Yeah, it was really interesting when I watched the Taila Santos fight on the Dana White Contender Series against Estefana Almeida. Just the use of those kicks that you mentioned. She was literally every single time she launched any kind of attack, there was 1, 2, sometimes even 3 leg kicks thrown into that combination, and yeah, she was really chopping it down from the very first bell as well. I mean, she probably landed about 10 heavy leg kicks within the first 90 seconds to 2 minutes of that fight. So obviously coming from that Muay Thai background, that's to be expected. But sometimes you don't always see it when they've got that background. But yeah, she certainly did. She was unleashing those kicks, and she looked good in that fight. And Almeida did did attempt several takedowns that she managed to stuff. Obviously, whether Almeida's takedown offense is as good as Borella's, I don't know. And whether like you say, whether Santos can do it against somebody who is UFC caliber is to be seen. But yeah, if she can keep the fight standing, it's going to be a very long night for Borella, and she's going to get lit up. So yeah, it's definitely a fight of contrasting styles. She's definitely going to want to get this fight to the mat to be able to win this fight. And as you mentioned, if she can do it early and maybe off one of those kicks, because like you say, they're not the low calf kicks that we see more often. They're the traditional in the meat of the thigh, and they are slightly easier to catch and maybe work for a takedown off it. So if she can do that early, get a takedown off one of those kicks, and maybe keep the fight on the mat for a 2 or 3 minutes, or even see out the round in that position, then we've got a really interesting fight on our hands, because you'd have to question whether Santos will go back to the leg kicks, which one of her main weapons. But yeah, I'm with you on the whole, though. I do think that that Santos is the far better striker. I do think she'll be able to keep it standing. I don't think Borella's a relentless enough takedown artist to be able to just constantly grind and push her up against the fence and wear her down and take her down and hold her down and make it a misery for her. So yeah, I'm going with Santos to win this as well. I also do think it'll go the distance. I think Borella's pretty tough. She hasn't been finished for a very long time. Back in, I think, about 2015 was the last time that she was finished. Yeah, I think Santos is going to win this. I think she's going to win a relatively comfortable decision as well. I think she'll will be quite impressed with on her debut.
Cool. So in the next fight of the night, we've got Thiago Alves against Max Griffin. Now, this is a really interesting fight, and when I first saw the betting lines for this, I got really, really intrigued on Thiago Alves, and the reason being is I'm sure at one point he was close to like a plus 200 underdog, which is just crazy when you think about it in regards to Max Griffin. He's been hit and miss in the UFC so far.
Yeah, definitely.
Thiago Alves is 100% a veteran of the sport, of the UFC. He didn't look too bad in his last outing away from home in Russia against Alexei Kunchenko, who's a legend out there in Russia. Also a guy with a great record as well. So I didn't think he looked out of place in that fight. But the more you look into this fight, the more I was changing my mind straight away. And I actually think Thiago Alves could, and like I said, I know he didn't have a bad outing his last time out, but I think he's done, man. And I spoke about this with Carlos Condit a few weeks ago before Christmas, and all the sort of statistics and sort of traits that's going on with Thiago Alves right now points to the fact that he could potentially be, on his way out. I mean, we know his best days are behind him, but man, he's got 2 wins in 4 years, and those wins we'll go back a little bit longer. He's got 3 wins in 5 years. Those 3 wins are Seth Baczynski, Jordan Meehan, and Patrick Cote, who, no disrespect, but they're not fantastic wins. Then his losses, Carlos Condit, 2015, Condit wasn't really done then, so that's a legit loss. Jim Miller is, again, I don't think he was on his way out in 2016 either. Curtis Millender, who I like quite a lot, and Alexei Kunchenko. But the fact is that Thiago Alves is racking up a lot of losses more losses than wins over a long period of time. And for me, that signs that he's better. He's not going to have any great days or many great days ahead of him. He might beat Max Griffin. He's still got technique. He's still got reasonable power. he's a veteran, he's got experience, he can use all this sort of stuff to his advantage. So I'm not saying that he can't beat Griffin. I just feel that Griffin's fighting a fighter that's potentially on his way out. Now, with Max Griffin, again, I'm wanting to be wowed by him. Like, I think he's got the ability. I just think he needs to let it go more now. I bet against him in that fight with Curtis Millender, and I actually think that he performed a lot better than I gave him credit for pre-fight. And Curtis Millender, I think, is a really good fighter. So the fact that he lost to Millender in the way he did, I think actually looks good for Max Griffin. I think Max Griffin's a solid striker. We know that that's his base. I know that he took Millender down, but his wrestling isn't his forte, and I don't see him taking Thiago Alves down and doing that with Alves. But I think this fight is majority gonna take place on the feet, predominantly take place on the feet, and I think that Max Griffin's just going to get the better of Alves in the striking exchanges. Now, Alves does use kicks well, he does use his clinch well and throws knees and stuff like that, but I just don't think you need to be explosive against Griffin, otherwise Griffin's going to turn into the aggressor and Griffin's going to be the one that presses you. And I just don't think Thiago Alves has got that explosive nature about him that he used to have back in his prime. And I think because of that, that's going to allow Griffin to push forward and ultimately push Thiago Alves back. I just think Griffin's going to get the better of the striking exchanges, as I've already said, and I do think Griffin's going to knock him out as well. It's all, it's not going to be nice. It's in the home country of Thiago Alves. He's a legend. He's a veteran. But listen, we speak about this with every veteran, with every legend. It always comes a time where it's just horrible to watch because they've given us so much of their lives in this sport of MMA, and eventually you have to watch him go on this decline, and unfortunately I think that's where we're at with Thiago Alves right now. So I'm going to take Max Griffin to win the fight, and I think he's going to win by knockout. Who have you got, John?
Yeah, it's a shame really, because Alves was a real top fighter back in his day. Obviously, unfortunately that day was a long time ago, back in the likes of UFC 90, UFC 100 when he fought GSP, and that was 10 years ago, man. And yeah, just time isn't on his side. He's 35 years old. He was his game's all about explosive power with those kicks and like heavy elbows and knees in the clinch and things like that. And as you mentioned, he didn't look as bad as I thought he would against Kunchenko, and he just really got out-volumed in that fight and out-pressured by Kunchenko, losing that decision. But yeah, he's. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him hang them up if he loses this weekend against Griffin, because I mean he's got nothing else to prove. If he loses that fight, he'll have lost 5 out of his last 6 fights then, with his last win coming in like 2017 against Patrick Cote. Griffin, he's one of those fighters that again against Curtis Millender, he did well. I say he did well, he lost, but he did well. I thought Millender would put him away, to be honest, because I'm like you, I'm a big fan of Curtis Millender. I think he can go a long way in the division, especially after we saw what Millender had done to Thiago Alves in his debut, and he fought smart against Mike Perry. He pressured Mike Perry and took him down and beat him up on the ground, and got a win over a dangerous, powerful striker in Mike Perry. So I think we'll see the same from Griffin. I think he'll just outwork Alves. I think he'll put the pressure on. I don't think Alves will be able to get off any meaningful offense. Nothing that will particularly put Griffin in danger. I don't really think Alves has got that finishing power anymore either. I don't think he's got that explosive power to put somebody away. I mean, he's only got one finish on his record since 2011, and that was the Jordan Mean fight back in 2015. So I don't think he's going to finish him. If it goes the distance, which I think it will, I think it will go the distance. If he goes the distance, I don't think he'll outwork Griffin and outstrike him and or anything like that. So I think it'll play out similar to the Kunchenko fight. Actually, I think he'll give a reasonable account for himself, Alves, but I think ultimately he will just be outworked. He'll be pressured. He'll get caught with more shots. Griffin, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Griffin shoot for the takedowns later on in the fight when he's worn Alves down a bit, and if he keeps backing him up. But yeah, I'm going with Max Griffin in this fight. I think he'll take a comfortable unanimous decision, and I do think that'll be the last we see of Thiago Alves competing. I do think he'll hang them up if he. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he did manage to win. I wouldn't be surprised if he hung them up as well in his home country. But yeah, I do think that'll be the last we see of Alves for definitely in the UFC and quite possibly in his career.
And it's funny as well, man, because you look at Max Payne's record, lost to Colby, then he won a fight, then he lost a fight, then he won a fight, then he lost a fight.
Yeah.
So,
I love those win-loss alternate records as well.
Absolutely, man. If probability is telling you anything, he's telling you that Max Payne's going to grab the win. But no, I agree, man, for sure. And in the next fight, we've got Markus Perez against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Now, it's about time we saw Anthony Hernandez back in the cage. Obviously, he won in Dana White's Contender Series. I think he got popped by cannabis in his system.
Oh yeah, ridiculous.
I always think it's just ridiculous, but that's a different story for a different day. Yeah, I'm excited to see Anthony Hernandez, and I'm excited for him to start his run in the UFC. He's a fighter that I like a lot. Don't let his record fool you, by the way, in regards to having 4 submissions, because they're all guillotines, which, logic tells you that the majority of them will have been someone shooting in on him, which leaves you to beg the question, why are people shooting on him when, especially if you're the third or the fourth guy to get caught in the guillotine choke from Anthony Hernandez, why are you still shooting in on him, and why are you still leaving your neck exposed? So that almost tells me anyway, without even looking at any footage of him, that he is a striker, and I that is the case. He likes to get in there. He likes to bang it out. He's got power as well. We saw that in his Contender Series fight with Jordan Wright. He absolutely floored Jordan Wright. So man, he's got the abilities on the feet. But Markus Perez, man, he is not an easy out at all. 2 losses on his record. Andrew Sanchez in his last fight. Obviously, Sanchez looked a little resurged there after a lot of people were talking about his gas tank and his cardio and losing fights that people were predicting that he probably shouldn't. And then the Eric Anders fight, man, he took so much punishment in that fight, and Anders could not put him away. Now, I know Anders has been a little less active in the volume respect lately in his fight, but I'm telling you, in that fight, he was landing hard, he was landing often, he was landing clean. He dropped Perez numerous times, but you just can't put him away. The dude's tough.
Yeah.
He's well-rounded as well. He was tired in the Eric Anders fight towards the end, but it was his debut in the UFC. I think it was short notice as well, and he was fighting Eric Anders, who was putting a pace on him, and he got dropped a few times. So all those things are pointing to you're probably not going to look your greatest in the 3rd round. And I just think that the dude can go 3 rounds. I think he has got a gas tank. He's tough enough to stay on the feet. He's got a good ground game as well. Like I say, the dude's really well rounded. And one interesting win on Perez's record is Ian Heinisch, who in my opinion is a really, really good fighter. We saw what he did to Cesar Ferreira a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, whenever that was. We watch a lot of fights, man. But yeah, so Ian Heinisch is a really good win for him, and that's interesting for sure. Now, it's a tough fight because Anthony Hernandez 7-0 coming into the UFC on his debut. You would think relatively inexperienced, but the dude's also a 7-1 amateur as well. So he's had a lot of cage time in his career, and he's only 25. He's growing, he's improving from fight to fight. I'm gonna take the underdog in this fight, though. I'm gonna go with Markus Perez. I think Markus Perez's been in there with some good guys, Andrew Sanchez, Eric Anders. I know he lost against both of them, but listen, when you lose, you learn. Life's full of lessons, and Markus Perez will have taken a lot from those losses against Anders and Sanchez for sure. And I also don't think Anthony Hernandez is as good as Sanchez or as good as Eric Anders either. Maybe not yet anyway. So I'm going to favour Markus Perez in this fight. I think he's going to have to weather a storm like he did with Anders. Then it begs the question, if Hernandez goes too hard, is he going to start tiring? We know he has been in a 5-round fight against Brendan Allen in LFA. Brendan Allen's also a really good fighter, by the way. So to go 5 rounds with him and beat him also says a lot about Anthony Hernandez. But yeah, I just think Markus Perez will do enough in this fight. I think he's going to have, like I've said, he's going to have to weather a storm. I think if he can get it down to the ground without getting guillotined, I think he's got a good chance of submitting Anthony Hernandez. If he can't get Hernandez out of there by submission, I think he can. His grappling's good enough to transition from position to position as Hernandez is maybe trying to stand up or just trying to work something back up to his feet or to get a dominant position himself. So I'm actually going to take Markus Perez to win by decision. I am going to give Hernandez the benefit of the doubt that his submission defense will hold up against him. And yeah, I just think over 3 rounds, if Markus Perez can score 2 or 3 takedowns, I think that'll be enough for him to win if he weathers that storm. So I'm going to take Markus Perez to win. I'm going to take him to win by decision. John, who have you got?
I thought about my on my own with the Perez pick on this one, but yeah, I'm following suit with you. From what I've seen of Hernandez, he's like you say, he's that explosive guy. Hits very hard, attacks in flurries, bites down on that mouthpiece, and tries to take your head off. We saw that against Jordan Wright when he absolutely flatlined him within, I think it was about 40 seconds of the first round. And I was watching the Mike Persons fight, which was the fight prior to the Brendan Allen fight that you talked about, and Persons that lasted slightly longer in going just over 3 minutes into the first round. But yeah, Persons was Hernandez seemed to just like something switched in his brain because Persons was trying to clinch him up against the fence a bit, and he'd done that a couple of times, and then yeah, Hernandez just kind of unloaded, and that's when as soon as Persons lowered himself to attempt a takedown, Hernandez locked in that guillotine real quick and got him tapping out. And I saw a couple of the other guillotine finishes which you mentioned. It's very much like you say a striker finishing people via guillotine because they basically don't want to take any of the strikes anymore and shooting for that desperation takedown. And Hernandez has really mastered the art of locking on that guillotine with really not much available to him. He just needs the slightest opening, and he can lock it up and lock it up tight. But again, we talk about experience and levels to this sport, and they're on a regional scene, and people do get caught quite often. I can't remember who he might have been when I was training at Team Renegade with Tom Breeze and the guys, and he said the most common submission you'll see in amateur and regional professional level mixed martial arts is a guillotine choke, because people tend to shoot him for sloppy takedowns when they get caught, and they leave their neck exposed. So whether that will happen in this fight, I don't think it will. I think, as you mentioned with Perez in the Anders fight, he took a lot of damage in that fight, and Anders, who hits hard, couldn't get him out of there. So does Hernandez possess more power than Anders? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe more volume. But I think Perez will be able to see out the first round, which is when Hernandez is at his most dangerous. It's similar to one of the fights that we mentioned earlier, that Jairzinho fight. that's when Hernandez is most dangerous, and when he gets his finishes in the first round. There's one fight on his record that has not gone that has gone out of the first round, and that was the Brendan Allen fight, and that ended up going to a decision. Now, we can't take a great deal of stock from that because, like you say, Brendan Allen's a good fighter. He's a tough guy, so we can't take a great deal out of that and say, oh well, if it goes out the first round, he doesn't get the finish because it's only happened once and it's against a very tough guy. But I do think that this fight will be a case of that, unless he finishes Perez early, and it's I don't think he'll be able to put him away, as in he'll knock him out clean. I think it would be him getting stopped by the ref pulling him off him just because he's throwing a flurry of punches, and Perez just can't catch a break from it. But yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Perez is going to be able to weather the storm in the first round. I think Perez is going to be able to, as you say, he's very well rounded. I think he's going to be able to take Hernandez down. I think he's going to be able to hold him down as well, and rack up the points in the judges' eyes. As you mentioned with that Heinisch fight as well, Ian Heinisch is a dangerous guy. He's he looked impressive in his UFC debut. He got good takedowns. He got good top control against a very dangerous guy on the mat in Fahea, and Perez finished Heinisch with that arm triangle choke. So I like Perez. I think he's a good, well-rounded fighter, and I also think he's going to win this fight by decision. I think he'll be able to weather the storm in the first round and ride out the next two with his wrestling and his top control and yeah, nullify Hernandez's KO threat.
Awesome. So we move on to the main card, and in the next fight of the night, we've got Livia, Renata, Souza against Sarah Frota. Now, Sarah Frota, again, another fighter coming from Dana White's Contender Series Brazil, which we are going to touch upon later as well, just spoiler alert there. But man, when I saw that Souza had got this fight against Frota, I was like a little similar to what I thought with Bibulatov and Bontorin. I thought, oh man, they're probably feeding Souza again. You know, she's a prospect. She looks dangerous. She's a finisher, 12-1 as well. So I thought, man, yeah, they're building another prospect up, which is cool. You know, we like to see that sort of stuff. That's, by the way, a matchmaker's job. So a lot of people will be like, oh well, the UFC shouldn't be feeding fighters. Well, you know, a matchmaker's job is to build prospects as well. So just a slight off topic there, but man, Sarah Frota is a nasty motherfucker. 9-0, unbeaten, and this, I'm telling you, this is not the feeder fight that I thought it was going to be. She's a finisher as well, man. 7 stoppages from 9 wins. 2 surprisingly have only 2 has been by knockout, because she hits hard, man, and you know, these women feel it when they get hit by Sarah Frota. They feel it. In the Contender Series fight against Dos Santos, she was hurting her really badly. I thought that was a late stoppage as well. It should have been probably stopped on the feet. Dos Santos just didn't have anything for her after like the 3rd or 4th clean shot landed. You know, Sarah Frota was nasty, and we've also seen her submit off her back as well. I watched a lot of this SFL, which is an Indian MMA promotion. It's cool as fuck. If you've not, you know, just again slightly off topic, if you've not managed to catch any of this promotion, watch it. It's awesome. They sort of like pick 2 teams of 5, and like a knockout's 4 points, submissions 3 points, decisions 2 points, or something like that. I can't really remember how the scoring works, but yeah, they've got some decent fighters. It's also the same promotion Vinicius Mamouche was in, who we discussed on the last card. So yeah, she, like I say, she's got 5 wins via submission, armbars, triangles, so she's good off her back. This also begs the question that if Souza takes her down, which she does like to do in her fights, I think it's the submission attempts, I think the scrambles, I think the grappling top and bottom from both girls is just going to be super exciting. I think this is going to be a really, really fun fight, man. Souza's quicker on the feet, though. I do think she's more aggressive. Whether she hits harder or not remains to be seen. It's quite tough to tell. But yeah, I think on the feet and the mat, Souza probably. I think she has more of an advantage on the feet than on the mat, but I think she has an advantage in both areas. As you can tell, I'm going to be picking Souza to win the fight. But man, it's going to be close. I really, really like Sarah Frota. She looks like she's got a good stand-up. She looks like she's good on the mat, top and bottom. Bottom's key as well, because like I say, if you get taken down in at this level of mixed martial arts, you have to expect that you're going to be taken down at some point, whether it be not this fight or another fight in the future. You're going to be getting taken down. You're going to have to defend off your back. You're going to have to stand back up to your feet. You're going to have to work transitions like I've just mentioned off your back. So Frota's got all that, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this fight really plays out, whether it be on the feet or whether it be on the mat. Now, I've got a funny feeling that Sarah Frota is going to have more success than Souza's expecting it to have on the feet. I think that Souza's going to come in aggressive and wild like she did against Alex Chambers, but I think she's going to get caught with a few hard shots that she wasn't caught by with Alex Chambers. I think that's actually going to I think Sarah Frota is going to get the respect of Souza quite early in this fight, and then I see Souza starting to shoot him for takedowns now. And I've mentioned this a couple of times with previous fighters lately on other podcasts, but if Souza takes Frota down, she has to pass, man. She has to get to half guard. She has to get to side control. I feel that Frota's probably only going to be massively dangerous off her back if it's in full guard. I'm not sure the sweeps will be there. I'm not sure any transition reversals will be there outside of that guard. Or even maybe in the guard, I don't really see any sweeps. I just think it's going to be submissions that Souza's going to have to be careful of, and that's only going to happen in full guard. I think that Souza is going to be able to pass, though. I think she's going to spend time on top. She might even get a submission if Frota tires. We have seen her tire in some fights, but again, that seems to be hit and miss. So where her cardio is actually at remains to be seen, in my opinion. But yeah, I think Souza's going to have success on the mat opposed to on the feet. And yeah, I can see her getting a late submission. So I'm going to take Livia, Renata, Souza to win via submission. John, who have you got?
Yeah, I was unsure when I watched some clips of Sarah Frota. I know she's 9-0. I know she's got a number of wins, first round stoppages, via strikes and via submission. She's very tall, long, southpaw. But yeah, when I was watching her in her fight against Amanjas in the Dana White Contender Series, I just didn't like the way that she holds her chin very high, especially when she's I think it was the left hand she throws. She keeps her chin very high, and when she's backing up, she keeps her chin very high, and although she throws pretty hard, that's got to be something that she needs to work on going forward if she's to make it to the top level in the UFC, because eventually somebody will slip one of those straight shots and catch her clean on that jaw and put her down. So that's something that I thought immediately when I watched. I thought she really needs to work on it, and I didn't like. The second thing that I want to say, again, I don't like to criticise fighters in any way, shape or form, because we say it week in, week out. We're just sitting here talking about the fights, and they're the ones out there fighting. I mean, she had in the Contender Series fight, she had her opponent hurt for about 90 seconds prior to the actual finish, and I know eventually she cracked her clean and put her down, but man, she was struggling to get her out of there, and her opponent was pretty much like literally turning her back to her, and as good as like refusing to fight anymore, and I know it looked a bit of a late stoppage, but she was still struggling to put her away. And I just thought some of her strikes, like, I don't know if the occasion maybe not got to her, but had some impact on it. But yeah, she looked a bit. I thought she looked a bit stiff with some of her striking, and a bit tense, especially when the opportunity to finish came about. I know she eventually did get that finish, so can't be too critical. But they're just a couple of points that I did pick up on. Going into that, but saying that, I mean, she's tough. She has got finishes off her back. She's got finishes via strike, so she's a proven finisher, which is good. Which is I think the division needs, which is exciting for the division. But as the theme of the night, I'm fancying. I'm following on your footsteps. And fancy Livia, Renata, Souza in this one. I just think she's the better overall fighter. She's the former Invicta strawweight champion, and she only lost that belt to in a very close split decision to Angela Hill, who we know is proven in the UFC. She's had a number of fights and fought a number of tough competitors. She fought in the UFC previously. She defeated Alex Chambers via guillotine. She roughed her up on the feet and rocked her, took her down, and got that mounted guillotine choke, if I remember correctly. And she looked super impressive in that. So again, I think it'll play the same. I don't even know if Frota will get the better of the standing exchanges. And let's say she does. I echo your statement. I believe that Livia, Renata, Souza will take the fight to the mat, and I believe she's a better, more dangerous fighter on the mat. I don't know if she'll finish her. I don't think she will. I think she'll get a decision victory. But yeah, I think Livia, Renata, Souza is going to win this fight. And it wouldn't surprise me if she dominated on the feet as well. If it just remained a stand-up war. From what I saw, I did have to hold my hands up, and I did only see a few highlights and then the entirety of that Dana White Contender Series fight, and I wasn't overly impressed with Frota's striking. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did remain a stand-up battle. Livia, Renata, Souza's more quick, feisty, aggressive striking came out on top as well. But either way, I'm going with Livia, Renata, Souza to win this fight via decision.
Awesome. And in the next fight tonight, we've got Johnny Walker against Justin Ledet. Now, man, I'm so confused with Johnny Walker. Like,
you're not the only one.
I just find him really hard to read at this stage of his career, because in his last fight against Khalil Roundtree, I was saying how I wasn't impressed with him, how I think that he gasses if he overexerts himself too much early on, how he throws the weird straight punches whilst moving forward with his chin laid up in the air. He has been knocked out brutally in the past as well. So you have all this stuff surrounding Walker. I felt like I actually had a good read on Walker in his last fight from the tape that I saw, and I thought Khalil was going to smoke him, but man, he came out against Khalil. He looked good. He clinched up against him. It's very, very apparent as well, because I've watched this knockout of Khalil about over 10 times, man. The elbow that he finally puts him out with looks nothing. It looks nothing at all yet. It shuts him straight out. So you can tell he's got raw power in his strikes. So he definitely holds that power. Now, I just don't know, because we saw a great performance against Khalil, but one might argue, has that fight not gone long enough for to see those bad traits that I spotted in his previous fight to not come out, or has he just improved from his previous fight and looked really good against Khalil? There's just so many question marks about Johnny Walker now. He has got a range of of tools to use. So, like I say, he's got power in his punches. It's very evident he's got power in his elbows. He uses kicks well. He's got decent movement. So he's got a wide variety of tools that he uses inside the cage. But then you go on to Justin Ledet. Now, I don't put any stock into what Alex Rakic did to Justin Ledet because, like, it was a bad stylistic matchup. And let's be honest, like, Alex kicks pretty fucking hard. And he was talking to me in Hamburg before the fight as well, Alex, saying that, you know, not many people can take sort of like more than 2 or 3 of his leg kicks. So Justin Ledet ate a lot of those, and it did affect his performance, definitely, but it didn't put it like didn't. I know he dropped him once. I think that was more off balance than anything else. Otherwise, he would have finished him via leg kicks. But Justin Ledet was still coming back in rounds 2 and 3 when the fight was starting on the feet, and his mobility still looked okay. So I do think that Justin Ledet can take damage. Whether he can take one of those elbows if he gets into the clinch with Johnny Walker, I really don't know. Again, it strikes me that Johnny Walker just got serious power in those elbows. But I don't know. Justin Ledet isn't the type of person to stick around in a clinch anyway. So I think this fight is going to be a case of Walker coming forward, trying to land volume, trying to land heat on Justin Ledet. I think Justin Ledet will be happy just to bounce around there, just to move around, stick his jab out. We know he's got a good jab. That's one of his better weapons. His boxing game's okay as well. He's even got a sneakily good ground game also. It's just we didn't see it against Alex because Alex has got an amazing ground game. But it's a tough fight to call, and I'm going with the fight that I'm going to pick is because of when I think this fight's going to end. And I think it's going to end in the first round. And therefore, I'm going to go with Johnny Walker. But if this goes out of the first round and Johnny Walker's landed a lot of volume and Justin Ledet, like I've already mentioned, is tough and he's weathered a storm, then I think Ledet's going to take over the fight. I think sort of halfway through, well, maybe at the start of the second, halfway through the second, and then definitely in the third, I think Ledet will be the fresher fighter. Will that have an impact on Johnny Walker's cardio if he's tired and if he starts getting hit clean by some heat from Ledet? Like I've said, we've seen him brutally knocked out before. I just find myself all types of confused in this fight. I'm gonna be picking Johnny Walker. I'm gonna pick him to win via knockout in round 1. But like I said, if it goes out of round 1, then I can genuinely see Ledet running away for it. But for the sake of the podcast, the pick's Johnny Walker via knockout. John, who have you got?
So the first fight of the night that we disagree on one. I'm going with Justin Ledet in this one, and basically for the reasons that you've just mentioned. Walker. I also thought that Khalil Roundtree would dispose of Walker, so I was very impressed with Walker's, especially how brutal the finish was. That elbow, like you said, I've watched it time and time again, and it's crazy that he just completely shut him out like that with an elbow. And yeah, I mean he's on a good run of wins. I mean he's about 7 or 8 wins since it was since that brutal knockout that I think you're referring to at Jungle Fight 88 when he lost within the first 20 seconds to Henrique Silva, and Henrique Silva in those 18 seconds managed to knock him out about 3 times, and Walker came back around and he got knocked out again, only to come back around to be knocked out again.
That's
and
not good, man, is it? For your career, that is not good to keep coming back. At that point, you want your body to shut down on you so you can live to fight another day, you know.
Yeah, it was hot. I mean, he could have easily been stopped the first. Do I remember rightly? Did he go in some kind of like jumping knee or Superman punch or something right off the first? Yeah, and he got caught and he got put on his arse, and yeah, he was kind of still had his wits about him then, but then he got caught and he was done, and then the ref let it go on for another like 5 or 6 seconds, and he managed to come back around, and then he got put out again, and it's not good at all for you. But But yeah, that's going slightly off what we were saying. But yeah, I mean, Walker, I think, has to win in round one because I do think he'll slow after the first. I do think that that he does get tired when he exerts himself with those big power shots, and like you say, he does tend to march forward quite unorthodox and chin in the air a bit, and yeah, it's a strange strange approach looking at it technically. But I mean, he's been getting results recently, so it must be working for him. But yeah, I think Ledet's gonna stick and move with that jab that you talked about. I'm basing this fight on. I should really do this, but I'm basing this fight as if the Rakic fight hadn't happened, because Rakic is just like you've mentioned. Rakic is a beast, and he's going to be very, very top level in the division in the future. So I'm basing it as though that fight didn't happen. So I'm going from pre Alexander Rakic, and yeah, I liked the look of Ledet. I think he's fought against like sluggers like we've seen with Chase Sherman, and he's come out and got the win. He's fought Mark Godby, got the first round victory over him, and he's gone the distance as we saw against Anyanwu, and got the split decision there. So he's got the ability to go the distance and get the results. And yeah, I just think he'll stick and move in the first round and really avoid Walker's big heavy power attacks and that, especially that clinch, and he won't want to hang around in that clinch very long if he does get tied up in there. But yeah, I think he'll be able to avoid that enough in the first round and be able to then take over from the second if he can get a takedown in there as well, and use that ground game that you spoke about that we didn't really see against Rakic, but he has got a deceptively sneaky ground game, and where he can get a bit of top control and wear on Walker a bit more. But yeah, I'm on the exact other side of the coin that what you said. It is either going to go one of two ways. I think it's either going to be Walker via KO in the first, or Ledet to take a decision, and I'm going with on the Ledet decision side of things. So yeah, I'm going with Justin Ledet to take the decision.
Awesome. So we move on to our next fight. We've got Charles Dobronx Oliveira back in Brazil, facing off against David Teymur. Now, it's a good fight, this, and again, it's sort of, for me, striker versus grappler. Even though Charles Oliveira is a good striker himself, I just feel that depending on where this fight goes, depends on who's going to win. Now, I mean, I'm not sure we even need to really break Charles Oliveira down. By this point, everyone knows what Charles Oliveira is. Decent striker, amazing grappling, amazing submission game. I think he holds the record for the most submissions in UFC history, I believe, if I'm right in saying that. But man, 17 submission wins out of 25 fights is just ridiculous. I also saw another stat as well, and again, I haven't dug up research on this, so I'm trusting that it's correct, that Charles Oliveira is 14-0 in Brazil, which is crazy. Like, it's mad. If that's true, that's absolutely nuts. But like I say, depending on where this fight goes, depending on who's going to win, I think that if it stays on the feet, I think the pressure, the movement, the angles that David Teymur creates inside the cage, I think is going to be way too much for Charles Oliveira. I do think Oliveira is actually a decent striker, by the way, like I've already mentioned. But like I said, the pace, the tenacity, the volume, the range of shots from the body and the head, and adding in low kicks as well from Teymur, he'll mix it all in on the feet. The dude's a really, really good striker. But if Charles Oliveira gets that takedown, we all know how good Charles Oliveira is on the mat. We all know how good he is at finding the back, or working his way up to a position close to mount, where he can start looking for arm triangles and arm bars from mount, and the guy can do it all when it comes to submissions. So, like I say, if you're picking Oliveira in this fight, you're banking on the takedown to happen. if you're picking Tamor in this fight, you're banking on Tamor's takedown defense, because I can pretty much assure you Charles Oliveira is going to want to get this fight to the mat at some point, because Tamor, I think, will be too much for him on the feet, whether he's in Brazil or not. However, I'm going to bank on the fact that Charles Oliveira does get a takedown. I think at some point in the fight, I think if it stays on the feet, I think Tamor will finish him. But if he finishes him, I think it'll be later on in the fight, which then gives Charles Oliveira more time to hunt for some sort of takedown, whether that be a single, double, trip, or whether he just clinches up against the cage and works his way around to the back of Tamor and just hops on his back. You know, we've seen him do that multiple times. The one thing that I have seen in regards to development in Oliveira's game is actually his takedowns. So earlier on in his career, he was sort of that classic great jiu-jitsu, but couldn't really get the fight to where it needed to be. You know, a lot of the time. Obviously, he's got a lot of submission wins. He's been submitting people for years, even at the start of his career. But like I say, I just don't think his wrestling really flourished that much. But I think that the more you see of him now, I actually think his wrestling is getting better and better, and we are seeing him having more success with takedowns. We are seeing him get the technique correct a lot more than what he used to. And like I say, he's got trips and he can hop the back as well. So he's got multiple ways to get the fight to the mat. And I think that's crucial here, because Tamor's not just going to be expecting a double or a single. He's got to expect being clinched up. And then when he's clinched up, is Oliveira going to try and reap a leg? Or like I said, is he going to try and make his way round to his back? Because he's got multiple avenues to take a fighter down and he can do it successfully. I think that'll cause a lot of problems for Tamor when it comes to defending those takedowns or trips, and basically stopping himself from getting his back taken or getting put on his back. So I'm taking Charles Oliveira for those reasons. I think he does find a way to get the fight to the mat, and I think he's going to submit David Tamor. So John, who have you got?
As the old saying goes, like London buses, we agree on every single fight, and then we have two in a row that we disagree on. I'm going with David Tamor to win this one. I really like Tamor. I think he's a really good fighter. I think he's good on his feet. He definitely has the striking advantage in this fight. He likes to keep very active when in the stand-up. I mean, when I say that, I mean he's constantly moving, constantly throwing strikes. He's never in the same place for more than a split second. He's always in and out and circling off and creating angles and things, which I really like, and I think he definitely has the edge standing up in this fight, and I do like his takedown defense and his ability to scramble. And I know he's going up against the guy who, if he gets you down, more often than not, he submits you and gets the win. But I don't know. When you look at who Tamor's fought, I mean, Drakkar Kloser's a very good wrestler, and he got the win in that fight. Nick Lentz is a good wrestler, he got the win in that fight. Lando Venata got the better of a good striker in that fight. I mean, he can avoid takedowns, and he has got good takedown defense. Oliveira, I know he looked great in that win over Jim Miller. Got the win very early in the first round by rear naked choke over a guy who is a submission specialist himself, who's tough to put away via submission. But the fight before that against Christos Giagos, I thought Giagos looked really good in that first round and looked good on the feet, and he stuffed a few of Oliveira's takedowns himself. And I know you mentioned that Oliveira's wrestling an ability to get the fight to his world and where he wants it is improving, which it definitely is. But I don't know, I just think Tamor's going to be too elusive for him. I think he'll be able to stuff takedowns. I think he'll be constantly on the move. I think it'll be hard for Oliveira to get hold of him and get those trips that you talked about. And yeah, I could see Tamor finishing it late in the fight, as maybe Oliveira tires, or if not, and he goes the distance, I could just see Tamor have been racking up the shots and getting the nod in the judge's eyes. But yeah, it's by no means it's a very close fight. The way I put that fight was though Tamor's going to easily shrug off all of Oliveira's takedowns and trips and attacks and things like that, which is not the case. He could quite easily go the other way with Oliveira getting the fight to the mat, and like I said a minute ago, if he gets the fight to the mat, he submits you, and that's just what he does. And when he wins, he wins via submission 99% of the time. But yeah, that it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if that does happen. But yeah, I just fancy Tamor in this fight. I can just see him being too elusive for Oliveira to get hold of and get him down, and he's the better striker. So yeah, I'm going for Tamor to. I think he'll be a decision. I think I don't think he'll put him away. I mean, he hasn't put away Lentz, Closer, or Renata. I mean, he hasn't put anyone away since 2016 when he fought Jason Novelli and Martin Svensson, when he put both of those guys away in the second round. But yeah, I think it'll go the distance with Tamor being able to avoid the takedowns of Oliveira and get a decision win.
Sweet, and we've got a similar matchup for the next one as well. We've got Damian Maia against Lyman Good now. Yeah. Initially, when this was announced, I thought it was pretty random. To be honest, like I would never have paired these two together. But it's a good fight, and again, it's striker versus grappler written all over. So, just like I've mentioned with Charles Oliveira and David Tamor, it almost begs the question that what is going to happen? Is Damian Maia going to get the takedowns and submit Lyman Good, or is Lyman Good going to put a world of hurt on Damian Maia on the feet? Now, Damian Maia's proved to be quite tough lately, especially in eating strikes, but I think Lyman Good's going to be a bit of a different kind of beast inside this cage if he starts landing shots on Maia, and I actually don't think Maia will be able to eat Lyman Good shots for 3 rounds if... Obviously, that's what it takes to go to a decision, so I don't think he'll be able to eat Lyman Good shots for 3 rounds. I think Lyman Good will get him out of there fairly soon after he hits him sort of like maybe 3, 4, 5 times pretty clean sort of on a button. But I don't know, man, like it's hard to trust somebody like Lyman Good, and the reason why is in his fight against... Zaleski dos Santos, he was heard in the corner when his cornerman was saying, you've got to go for it, you've got to put it on him, and sort of Lyman Good was saying something along the lines that he's very cautious of going in there hard in case he gets knocked out, and that sort of mindset in MMA in general is quite surprising. But then that being a response to your cornerman and what they're telling you to do is even more surprising. So I do find it quite hard to trust Lyman Good in this spot. Like I say, I'm a solid believer of the mental game being so important, so vital in mixed martial arts. That almost goes against everything not everything, but the majority of what I believe in, because like I say, I think the mental game plays a huge part. I've always said, and fighters say it as well, you can be the best fighter in the world, you can have all the ability in the world, but if your mental game's not there, you'll not amount to that much, and that's how important that mental game is. So I do find it hard to trust someone like Lyman Good after hearing that. Now, the counter argument to that would be, well, Zaleski dos Santos hits hard, he's a knockout artist, he's aggressive, he's explosive. Damian Maia isn't those things. But my argument back to that counter argument would be, well, if he was concerned about getting knocked out against dos Santos and was quite vocal about it, is he going to be cautious, scared, or concerned about closing the distance against Damian Maia to strike with him in case Damian Maia grabs a hold of him and backpacks him? So you can use this in different scenarios. I just find it quite hard to trust Lyman Good. right now, especially after the points that I've just made. I also think that Damian Maia is still good enough to grab someone's back. He's still good enough to snake his way to the back. If he can't get that single or that double, he's just he's so slick, and like I said, just snaky, man, with how he can manage to get people's backs without them even knowing that it's happening. He's an absolute expert at it. So again, just like I said in the Charles Oliveira fight, I do think Damian Maia manages to get the fight to the mat, and man, I don't even need to explain how good Damian Maia is on the mat. I genuinely think he only needs it on the mat once with a couple of minutes to work. If not, and if I'm wrong about that, that'll be because Lyman Good's fighting their hands really well. We have seen fighters do that. Matt Brown did it quite well. Jorge Masvidal did it very well. So, if you fight the hands really well, that's great. But if you're doing that, Maia's still going to be on your back. So he's either going to be winning a round or submitting you. I think he will submit Lyman Good in that position. But if Lyman Good does surprise us and his hand fighting game's on point that night, I think he will get constantly taken down over. Well, he'll get taken down once in each round over the 3 rounds, and I think Maia would win a decision that way. But I'm going for Damian Maia to win via submission. John, who have you got?
As you mentioned, it's pretty similar to the last fight with the striker versus grappler. And on this occasion, I'm also going with the grappler Damian Maia. Now I know he's on a 3-fight skid, but he's lost to Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington, and Kamaru Usman, who, when you look at them, obviously immediately you think of 3 of the top guys in the division, but secondly, think of their wrestling credentials and how that nullifies what Damian Maia does and what Damian Maia does best. Now, we now have to bear in mind that Damian Maia's 41 years old, and I'm going back to these fights back in 2017 against Jorge Masvidal. A lot can change between 2017 and 2019 for somebody who's 41 years old. But when you look at the Jorge Masvidal fight, where Maia won that split decision, Masvidal was striker, Maia was grappler. I'd say that Masvidal, 2017 Masvidal is far more dangerous than 2019 Lyman Good, and Damian Maia got hold of Masvidal and did what Damian Maia does, controlled the fight on the ground and got the split decision. I also agree with you what you said about Good when he was saying he was concerned about getting finished and things like that. It's not really something you particularly want to hear from your fighter when you were cornerman.
I mean, I would be scared of getting knocked out by Zaleski dos Santos.
Well, yeah,
absolutely. But man, these are professional mixed martial artists. Right. The baddest human beings some of the baddest human beings on the planet. Up there with your military and stuff like that. That's why I've just changed, my wording on that. But there's some of the baddest human beings on the planet, and getting knocked out isn't something they should be scared about.
It's strange, really, to think that someone who's a professional fighter has that kind of mentality in the middle of a fight as well. I mean, maybe you could think it in the build up to the fight. Oh shit, man! What if I get knocked out in this fight? But he's a heavy-handed guy. But yeah, in the middle of a fight, yeah, it's a bit of a strange thing to turn around and say to your corner. So yeah, that worries me from the mental side of things. Ultimately, I think Damian Maia will be able to, as you mentioned, get the fight to the ground, and it only takes him getting the fight to the ground once to keep you down on the mat and hold you there. We saw that I know this is going back several years now, but in the Gunnar Nelson fight. I mean, Gunnar Nelson, even then, I think he was 2015, 2016. Gunnar Nelson, legit black belt, very, very dangerous grappler. And Damian Maia just controlled him with ease throughout the entirety of that fight. And that's all it takes for Damian Maia. If he gets you down, he holds you down, he keeps you there, he either finishes you or just makes it impossible for you to mount any offense. off your back, or B, get back to your feet to attack with strikes. So yeah, even at this stage in his career, Damien Maia, I think he'll be able to take Lyman Good down, and yeah, I think he'll either ride it out for 3 rounds and get a decision. It wouldn't surprise me if he later on in the fight, if Lyman Good's been fending off all those submission attacks for 10, 12 minutes, that there's an eventual slip in concentration and he gets finished via submission, and that's what I'll ultimately go for. I'm going to go with Damien Maia to win this fight via submission in round 3.
Now we move over to the co-main event, and what a fight this is, man. We've got Jose Aldo against Renato Moicano. Now, man, I love that Jose Aldo proved a lot of people wrong, and me included, by the way.
Yeah, man.
Without me going back, I'm pretty confident I picked Jeremy Stephens in that fight. I could be wrong, but I think I did. And man, how wrong was I? You know, Aldo came out and he weathered a storm, and he ended up dropping and finishing Stephens with a brutal liver shot, absolutely on the money. Bear in mind, Stephens is not a fighter that gets finished very often either. You know, it was a solid performance from Aldo. However, I still think that no matter how much of a solid performance it was, we're still not seeing the same Aldo that we used to. Which is, you know, it's fair to say he's had a long, lengthy career, again, a legend, again, a veteran of the sport. I definitely don't think he's on his way out, by the way. He's still got a lot to give to this sport. I know he said he only wants to fight, I think, 3 more times in Brazil and then he's done. But I still think he's got enough to give to the sport for us to be excited about. Anyway, now Renato Moicano is just on a totally different trajectory right now. So this is a guy that's on the up. This is a guy that's training hard at American Top Team with Edson Barboza. This is a guy that does some absolutely beautiful things inside the cage, which I'll touch upon in a minute. But the guy's a beast, and like I said, he's only getting better. We will keep seeing better versions of Moicano now for, I think, at least the next 4 or 5 fights. I think his ceiling's that high. Now, when I mentioned in respect to the beautiful things that he does 2 things that I really like, and one of the things is what I spotted watching tape is crazy. So the first thing is his jab. So you've got to love a fighter that uses a jab, an educated jab, a jab that's effective. They really make it work inside the game. Moicano uses that. Now, the second thing you really like from fighters is leg kicks. And when you combine the fact that a fighter uses leg kicks and a jab, you've then instantly got a really smart, educated fighter that's going to win a lot of decisions. And I think that's key in a 3-round fight with Jose Aldo. You've got to put yourself in a position where you can win a decision, because the chances are that's probably where the fight's going to go. You've got to have those 2 things. Now, the jab is beautiful, like I've already mentioned, from Moicano. The leg kicks, though, he does something really smart and really beautiful. And like when I saw this watching tape, I was shocked at how good Moicano is at it. So these leg kicks that I'm talking about. Now, generally, what happens with a leg kicker is you tend to get countered with straight shots. So the leg kick will come in. So say if the right leg comes into the left leg, the right leg kick comes into the lead left leg of the opponent, you get countered with the straight right, straight down the pipe. So those are the sort of shots you get countered by. Now, what Moicano does throw those sort of kicks where he will leave himself open to be countered. You know, he's not absolutely perfect. I don't think any fighter is, but what he did a lot against Calvin Kattar. And you've really got to look for this. If you've watched tape on this fight already and you haven't seen this, go and run the tape back and watch for what I'm about to tell you. You'll see it. So he waits for Calvin Kattar to take that slight step forward in his aggression, or whether he's just moving forward to close the distance, or whether he's moving forward to attack. He waits for that front foot just to touch in front as he's moving forward, and bang, there comes a leg kick. Now, what that does is Calvin Kattar has got a slight off balance at that point. Calvin Kattar's also thinking about not countering. He's thinking about the fact that he's aggressing, moving forward, or he's thinking about striking. So he isn't in a position to start countering these leg kicks from Moicano. And man, the more you think about that and the more you watch what Moicano's doing, the more you have an appreciation and realise that it's genius, because what that's allowing Moicano to have is free leg kicks without the worry of potentially getting countered after each kick, and that's ultimately what really fucked Keita up. And I bet Keita in that fight. I didn't just pick the guy, I bet him. Like, Keita, I believe Keita is a serious guy in that division. I know I picked Fish Cold against him. That was a bit of a dodgy pick, but I'm a big fan of Keita, and what he did to Keita was so impressive, man. And it's just little things like that in Moicano's game that I think just puts him a level ahead. Now, some people will say, and the right in saying it, that Jose Aldo was 2 rounds up on Max Holloway both times. I think he probably was, but Max Holloway decided. This is the way Max Holloway plays his fights, and I think he did the same thing against Ortega. He actually said halfway through, I think it was at the end of like the 4th round or at the end of the 3rd round, he actually said to his corner, right, this is the round now, this is the one that I'm going to put him away in. So he's ultimately Max Holloway playing these games where he can decide when he finishes, and I almost think that he was waiting for Aldo to overexert, to gas out and to get a bit tired, and then he was putting the hurt on him to finish him. I think Max Holloway, if he came out aggressive from the start, I think he could have put Aldo out of there a lot earlier. So although Aldo went 2 solid rounds with Max Holloway twice, he also took a lot of damage in those fights as well. Now, we didn't see too many effects of that in the Jeremy Stephens fight, and he did eat some shots from Jeremy Stephens, and he did weather a storm, but I still think that those Max Holloway finishers have had some sort of effect on Jose Aldo, and I do see it playing a point in the near future in an Aldo fight. Whether it be Moicano, I'm not sure, but I do think that we will start seeing those effects of the decline. Like I said, he's not done yet. He's still got more to give, but like I mentioned before, his better days are behind him. Now, the other thing that I think stands Moicano in good stead of winning this fight is, like I said, he has to win a decision. Now, Jose Aldo is a lot like Renan Barão in the way he gasses, and he doesn't really gas by too much movement or too much volume or anything like that. He tends to gas a lot by getting hit, by whether it just be solid jabs or whether it be combinations. That's very, like I said, it's very similar to Renan Barão, and I just think Moicano is going to be hitting Aldo constantly. I think the jab's going to constantly be there. I think the leg kicks will constantly be there. I think Moicano will tire him out just by touching him with stiff jabs and, like I say, stiff crosses, and just using a variety of strikes. And I think Moicano's going to put him away. I'm a big fan of Moicano, like I say, especially what he did against Calvin Kattar as well. I think that was a really special performance. Dispatched of Cub Swanson, which we all sort of predicted anyway. But I think that this is Moicano's time. And yeah, I think that Moicano could potentially start a bit edgy in this fight. Aldo is still explosive, but he's explosive in bursts. So if Moicano's smart, which we have seen him fight smart before, like against Jeremy Stephens when he was on the back foot a lot, we've seen him fight moving forward, we've seen him fight moving backwards as well. I think that Moicano's gonna take a round, or maybe not a full round, but the majority of round 1. I think Moicano will start a little bit edgy, but I think at the end of round 1 he'll really start to settle down, find his rhythm, start finding Jose Aldo's face on the end of his jabs, and get his kicks mixed in with that as well. And I think from that point, Moicano will take over the fight. I think round 2 will probably be the round where he tires Aldo most. I think we'll see the finish at the end of round 2, or I think we'll see it in round 3. But I've got Renato Moicano winning via knockout. John, who have you got?
I'm going to go the other way in this fight. I'm going to go with the featherweight legend in Jose Aldo, and it's not an easy decision to make at all, because Moicano is the future of the featherweight division for sure, and as you just mentioned in detail there, he's an extremely dangerous guy. He's very well rounded. He he's very technical, does very precise technical things standing that in the stand-up game that people don't notice, but you picked up on, but people don't notice. But he's a fantastic fighter, and I have no doubt in my mind that he will be the featherweight champion in the future. But I don't know, man. There's just something about Geraldo fighting here in Brazil, coming off that Jeremy Stephens. I mean, everyone wrote him off for that Jeremy Stephens fight, and he looked fantastic. He looked great, and he put him away. He did eat a couple of shots, and Jeremy Stephens hits hard, and yeah, he still kept marching forward and put Stephens away with that brutal body shot. And obviously we know he's lost 4 fights in his career. He's lost twice to Max Holloway, who people argue is already the best featherweight ever. If not, he may well go down as that in the future. Obviously we know what happened against Conor McGregor, who is also one of the best featherweights to have competed. And then you're going back years and years ago to Jungle fight in 2005 when he lost before that. And I know you mentioned about the Holloway fights. They will have taken something out of him. And if this was the main event, and I know this is why Geraldo said he doesn't want 5 rounds, because I don't think he's got 5 rounds in him anymore. If this was a 5-round fight, I'd 100% be going with Moicano. But there's just something about Aldo over 3 rounds. I think he can do it over 3 rounds. I mean, Max Holloway is the kind of guy. I know he finished in both times in the 3rd round, in the last minute of the 3rd round as well. But Max Holloway is a guy who's constantly in your face, like all the time in your face, landing shots on you. You can hit him with whatever you like, and he just keeps coming forward and marching you down. And like you mentioned with Aldo, it's and how he tires similar to Borella. There's just that combination of that aspect of it, and someone just constantly marching you down that just wore on Aldo and put him away. But will Moicano put on that level of that kind of pace and that kind of pressure? I don't know. I know you mentioned it, whether Moicano will come out quite slow in the 1st round. If he does, then and they come out in the 2nd round, and Aldo's still pretty fresh. He's only got 2 rounds to worry about with his gas tank, and I don't worry about Aldo for those 2 rounds. I mean, I know we're going back years now, but that fight against Chad Mendes that went the distance, he although he slowed, he went the distance and won the decision. Frankie Edgar at UFC 200, that was a few years ago now, but he went the distance and he looked good in that fight, and he was comfortable throughout the 5 rounds against Edgar, who's very active and puts pressure on you. But and yeah, I just fancy Aldo to take. I think it'll go to a decision, and I just fancy Aldo to take a decision. I think he'll do more in rounds 1 and 2 than Moicano will do in round 3, and I think it'll have to be a case of Moicano puts him away in the 2nd half of round 2 or in round 3 to win, because I think I do think Aldo will come out for the 1st round and a half, maybe 2 rounds, and be ahead on the judges' scorecards after that period, and yeah, Moicano could put him away. I could be talking absolute rubbish like every weekend, and there's every chance they could put him away. But I mean, obviously, when you look at his record, he put Cub Swanson away via rear naked choke in his last fight, but Cater, he went to a decision. Stevens, he went to a decision. Tucker Garvey went to a decision. And then you're going back to 2014 against Nini Maki when he got a stoppage. So I still think there's some mileage left in Aldo that he won't get stopped in this fight. I don't think he'll get submitted. So I don't think he has to worry about that. And I don't think he'll get finished with strikes by Moicano. So yeah, I could see Aldo winning the first 2 rounds, weathering a late storm in the third from Moicano. But yeah, I think Jose Aldo's going to edge this, and he's going to get the decision win.
Cool, and now we enter the main event of the night. We've got Rafael Assunção versus Marlon Moraes 2. Now, man, I'm just going to open this off by saying that the line is getting more, the betting line is getting more to where it should be, but the fact that Assunção was at one point plus 200 at the books is just, is probably one of the worst lines I've ever seen in my betting career. And I've seen some pretty awful lines as well, but like for me, I don't understand how these two guys can fight 18 months ago and only have sort of like 3 or 4 fights since then, and then be matched again 18 months after, with the fight being razor close, with Assunção winning a split decision, then Assunção being a plus 200 dog. Like, I understand if Marlon Moraes is a slight favourite, you know, recency bias, couple of knockouts in his last fight against Rivera. It was quite impressive, to be honest. You know, Rivera doesn't really get stopped. And then Aljamain Sterling, which, let's be honest, it was a head kick that he actually landed the knee of the kick.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would totally get Marlon Moraes as a slight favourite for sure, but I think it should have been closer to a pick 'em man, definitely. The fight's going to be close again. It's really interesting that that we've got an extra 2 rounds in this fight. Obviously, the last fight went to a split decision, as I've already mentioned. I did score that at the time for Marlon Moraes, and then when I watched it back, man, I wanted to score it a draw. Like, if you force me to pick a winner of the fight, then I would pick Marlon Moraes. If you forced me, but that fight could have easily been a draw for me, in my opinion. It was that close, and I think that the extra 2 rounds in this fight is going to benefit Assunção for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't think Assunção slows down. You know, I've had this discussion with a couple of people that I talked to on MMA Twitter, a couple of people that I really respect and respect their reads and what they see. So we've had this discussion, and a couple of people have said that they feel that Assunção was slowing down in that Moraes fight. Moraes was picking it up in round 3. I don't really see that personally. I think that the pace was sort of quite similar throughout the entire fight. Now, there is a legit argument. I will totally understand this for Marlon Moraes, the fact that he has had 5-round experience before. I think it was the World Series of Fighting, it was at the time. So he has had that experience of going 5 rounds. Rafael Assunção hasn't, but I personally don't think Assunção slows down in fights. So I've not seen him gassed, and we also know he's really energy efficient as well. So he counters, he doesn't throw unnecessary strikes. You know, everything that he throws accurately to land. So he doesn't overexert himself in any of these fights. So I've got absolutely no worries whatsoever that Assunção is gonna, horribly gas out or anything like that. And I think he'll be able to go 5 rounds at a comfortable pace, and this, at least the same pace as Marlon Moraes. But it's the fight IQ of Assunção over these additional 2 rounds. Now, I think the fact that these two have fought before benefits Assunção more. Assunção makes really nice in-cage adjustments, and we see that in a lot of his fights when something isn't quite going his way. And we saw it with Rob Font as well. Rob Font had moments early on in that fight, but Assunção adjusted. He's really, really smart. He's clever. He fights to his strengths. He even admits he doesn't like his own fighting style. He gets why people don't like it also. But he's a winner. He wins rounds. That he is what he is. And I think the fact that we've seen Assunção, the fact that Assunção's seen Moraes before, will allow him to make further adjustments in this fight. I think if anything does happen sort of earlier on in this fight, Marlon Moraes comes out with something that Assunção wasn't expecting, I think Assunção will be able to adjust to it, and he's got an extra 2 rounds to help with that adjustment as well. So I do think like I've already mentioned, the extra 2 rounds favours Assunção. Marlon Moraes' chin is very questionable as well. We've seen him dropped a few times. I think Assunção dropped him a couple of times in their fight as well. I know Dodson had him drop momentarily also. So I don't think Assunção's going to knock him out, but the chin's a worry. And listen, when a fighter gets dropped in a fight, no matter whether it's a momentary moment or not, whether they pop back up or stay down for a little bit, that scores really highly on the judges' scorecard. So in a close fight, if someone gets a knockdown, they're going to win that round. It's pretty much inevitable. Now, the other thing to mention is the point scoring, because Assunção is 13-3 on the judges' scorecards. Marlon Moraes is 6-1. It's still a good record as well. But I don't think it's a coincidence that Rafael Assunção and John Dodson both got a 30-27 scorecard from one judge against Marlon Moraes. Now, admittedly, those are awful scorecards, by the way, like disgusting scorecards. No fighter won 3 rounds in any of those fights. So, and I actually scored the fight to the other guy as well. So I think they're really bad scorecards. But the fact that a judge has given 3 rounds to both of those guys on one scorecard, I don't think it's a coincidence, and it tells a story maybe that people aren't considering, because I think Marlon Moraes' style just doesn't look great in the eyes of the judges, whereas Assunção, in my opinion, wins rounds sometimes that he shouldn't win. So he's completely the opposite scale. You know, sometimes he can be a bit deficient in a round and still manage to end up winning it on a judge's scorecard. I honestly, man, I think over 5 rounds, you say to me, can Assunção win 3 rounds out of 5 in a fight? Absolutely he can. This is a guy that is a point fighter, that this is his game. He wins rounds. That's what he's about. Now, Marlon Moraes isn't going to be an easy fight, and I'm telling you, Assunção's got to be careful of that high kick early on, because Moraes is going to be trying to land it. It's what he knocked Aljo out with. It's what he knocked Rivera out with. You can bet your bottom dollar that Marlon Moraes is going to try and knock Assunção out with it as well. I just don't think it lands, and like I say, I think it's going to be a close fight over 5 rounds. I think it's going to go to a decision. I think Assunção's going to take it. So, John, who have you got?
I'm of a very similar opinion to you. I think Assunção has mastered the art of winning fights in the judges' eyes, and doing enough to win fights in the judges' eyes, and rightly so. It's kind of strange, really, because when you look at his record, when you just look at who he's fought and how the results have gone. So he fought TJ Dillashaw. This is going way back when he fought TJ Dillashaw the first time. He beats him via decision. He beats Pedro Munoz via decision, Brian Caraway by decision. He rematches TJ Dillashaw at UFC 200 and loses. Then he fights Aljamain Sterling and obviously the first Marlon Moraes fights, both in 2017. And then from there you think, okay, he's going to be fighting for the title at some point soon and fighting the top end. But then the UFC, man, they're giving him Matt Lopez and Rob Font from there, which no offense intended for both those guys. So I like both those fighters, but compared to the competition, it's as though he's gone down in the level of competition that he's fought, and now he seems to be back to fighting Moraes again, who he already beat only like 3 fights ago. So it's quite strange in that sense, but I don't think anything has dramatically changed since their first meeting in 2017, which was a close fight, and which could have gone either way. Obviously, since that fight, Moraes has fought 1 extra time against John Dodson and won via split decision. Again, like you mentioned, Dodson momentarily dropped him, and it was again a pretty close fight. Then I like Moraes as well. I'm not saying I don't like him. I really like him. I think he's a good, entertaining fighter. I've watched quite a lot of him back in World Series of Fighting as well. But the win over Jimmy Rivera, that was legit, because, like you said, not many people defeat Jimmy Rivera and put him away, especially in the manner that Moraes did. But yeah, that Aljamain Sterling win was kind of, I don't want to say fluke, because nothing in the fight game really is a fluke. But yeah, he was just kind of ridiculous timing that Sterling shot in then, and Moraes was clearly throwing that high head kick, and Aljamain Sterling kind of ducked into it more than Moraes intended that to be the outcome of what had happened. But at the end of the day, he threw a head kick to try and put him out, and he put him out. So it is what it is. But yeah, I don't think he'll be able to land that on Assunção. Like you said, they've fought before, so Assunção knows what to expect. He knows where Moraes is dangerous. He knows that he likes to go for that head kick, and that's where he can do damage. And I think Assunção will be wise to that. And a lot of people just think of Assunção as this very dangerous grappler and dangerous on the mat, but he's more than that now. His striking's evolved quite significantly over the years, and he can hang on the feet now with people, and yeah, like you said, I think he's just going to be he's going to have too much for Moraes again, I think, especially over 5 rounds. I don't think Assunção will tire. I think he can pace it for 5 full rounds. Will Moraes tire? I don't know. I think I'd worry about him tiring more than I'd worry about Assunção tiring. Let's put it that way. Will Assunção take Moraes down? Possibly. He may do later in the fight. I don't think we'd expect to see it too early because of what Moraes did to Aljamain Sterling, did to Jimmy Rivera. He'll be cautious of a knee or a kick catching him as he goes in, but maybe later in the fight when they are starting to tire and there's less power behind those strikes, then yeah, maybe he'll start to utilise his wrestling, his grappling a bit more later on. But yeah, it does boil down to exactly what you said. It's a 5-round fight. Assunção against Moraes. They fought before. Assunção got the win in that fight. Can Assunção now win 3 rounds out of the 5? And I think he absolutely can, and I think he absolutely will. And yeah, I just think he'll have too much for Moraes everywhere the fight goes. I mean, Moraes may win a round. When it's striking, he may win a round or 2 early on, maybe 1 or 2 of the first 3 rounds. But as the fight goes on, I do think Assunção will be the more dominant fighter and will get the better of Moraes and take rounds in the judges' eyes. Because as you mentioned, that's what he does, and people have done that against Moraes as well. Have taken a 30-27 against him, even when he has won the fight in the judges' decision. So yeah, I'm picking with you on this one. I think Assunção will win this fight, and I think he's going to win a unanimous decision.
And that's all she wrote for the fight breakdowns, guys. But we move on, and welcome to the hot topics portion. So the first thing I'd like to kick this off is with the Contender Series. Now, I've been through the Contender Series before, but I've not been through it in respect to Contender Series Brazil. Now, this was all, well, for me it was anyway. It was a bit of a shock. It came out of the blue. They didn't really have any sort of announcement that they were doing this, not that I can recollect anyway. And apparently it was, well, they've only had 1 season. It was recorded over a couple of days, I believe, and then broadcasted over various weeks on other platforms such as Combatchi and things like that. So the reason I'm bringing this up in the hot topics portion is because there's a lot of fighters on this card, and there's been a lot of fighters over the sort of the last few months, especially in the run into Christmas, that big run-in that we had, where there were just loads coming from this Contender Series Brazil.
Yeah.
And we were seeing names we've not heard of, and then seeing that they were in the Contender Series, thinking, oh shit, okay, well, they're in the Contender Series, I better go out, get on Fight Pass and have a look at some of these fights. And man, there's some really, really exciting fighters. So just to name a few off the list from what I've seen and spotted that are great fighters are Rogerio Bontorin, which is a fighter on this fight card, Mayra Bueno, Sarah Frota, Augusto Sakai, Taila Santos, Johnny Walker, Marina Rodriguez, Julian Paiva, who's going to be on an upcoming card, Vinicius Mamouche. I know he lost against Alonzo Menefield, but I'm telling you that dude's got a future in the UFC for sure. And Thiago Moises as well, and I've expressed my opinions on him previously. So I just wanted to bring this up, and I hope they do another one as well, because they have only sort of the fighters that I've named in that list are pretty much all the fighters that we've seen or are going to be seeing. I hope they do some more, because they're bringing out some really, really good fighters, specifically women as well. So, Mayra Bueno Silva was the girl that beat Gillian Robertson. I bet Gillian Robertson that fight. I still feel a bit unlucky that that what happened, because Gillian Robertson tapped out with an armbar. I think it was 3 seconds before the end of round one. But what we didn't know was Mayra had bust a leg, and she wouldn't have been able to continue into the second round. But she looked good. She looked good on the feet, and she looked improved as well. And this is another thing that's coming from these women off the Contender Series in Brazil. They're looking far better inside the cage in the octagon than they did in the Contender Series fights and on the regionals as well. So you can see a natural progression and improvement in these girls. Another one to mention, Marina Rodriguez put on a really good performance against Randa Marcos. Marina Rodriguez has got sick Muay Thai. Reminds me of an old school Anderson Silva in the way that she uses it. So she's definitely one to look out for the future. We've already spoke about the 15-0 Taila Santos when we're breaking down this card as well for UFC Fortaleza, so she's going to be one to look out for. Sarah Frota, again, I'm the women specifically coming out of the Contender Series in Brazil look really, really special, and it just seems like UFC have done a really good job in finding that raw talent for us. So, I mean, a really nice surprise from us. It would be nice to have a bit of warning next time, so we can tune in and watch for sure. But John, what's your take on the Contender Series Brazil, and what do you want to see from it moving forward?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. You got to give huge props, huge shout out to the UFC really for finding these people, because obviously with us being the other side of the pond, we may not recognise some of the names as much or the promotions that they're coming from, but they're getting these people from far and wide to compete on the Contender Series, and they're good, talented fighters. I mean, you've pretty much reeled them all off there and named them, but there's some really good guys. I mean, like you said, Johnny Walker fighting on this card, and especially a lot of the female fighters, Marina Rodriguez, as you mentioned, Taila Santos, who I'm really looking forward to seeing this weekend. Sarah Frota as well, Augusto Sakai we saw from the Contender Series. I mean, they're doing a really good job matching these fighters up. First of all, matching them up on the Contender Series, and then secondly, when they actually move them up into the UFC proper, they're proving that they've got the talent to be there, and they're beating some.
That's a key point that you've just mentioned as well. It's a really, really good point in regards to what you've just said in the matching them up in the Contender Series first. These fighters are being matched up so well in the Contender Series that the winners that are getting contracts into the UFC have just fought a very high and a very good level of competition, that they don't look out of sorts in the UFC. That they're not going in there and looking deficient in any way. They're going in there with confidence. They're going in there because they know that they've just beaten someone great to get there. So it definitely shows inside the UFC because how they're matching them in the Contender Series.
Yeah, definitely, and yeah, they're proving that they're extremely good additions to the UFC roster, and especially as you say with some of the female fighters. I mean, some of them can definitely be contenders for the title in years to come if they continue on the same path that they are at the moment. So yeah, I mean, we mentioned it before about the American version of the Contender Series, and it's got to be echoed again here with the Brazilian version. They're doing a fantastic job in bringing through new talent, and yeah, just like you say, maybe a bit more notice would be nice next time. But maybe a European Contender Series, who knows in the future whether we'll ever see anything like that. But yeah, more of it, please, because yeah, they're producing some great talent.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And a European contender series would also be pretty cool as well.
Yeah, it'd be good,
Europe's
man.
not a small place. We've got plenty of countries that make up Europe. So plenty of countries, there's plenty of opportunities and fighters that are ready to break out and not being able to grab that opportunity. So I absolutely agree. Maybe they
That'd
look
be
to go
fun for
over to
sure.
Asia as well.
Yeah,
That could
just
be a good shout. Also, there's so much they can do with the contender series, and as much as I defend and as much as I'm a big fan of the Ultimate Fighter, in regards to what it's done for the sport and how many not just world class fighters it's given us, but champions it's given us. I do
Yeah,
think the contender series is probably the future replacement for the Ultimate Fighter.
yeah.
Like I say, for as much as I love and respect the Ultimate Fighter, I do think if anything's gonna overtake it and replace it, I think the Contender Series is the perfect thing for it because it's just delivering that much talent to us over a 12-month period than what the Ultimate Fighter does. So yeah, I'm in absolute favour of it for sure. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is the UFC Bantamweight Division. So obviously this affects the main event of UFC Fortaleza with Rafael Assunção and Marlon Moraes. I think there was a legit argument, and I had this debate with a couple of people on Twitter, because I was in the corner of Assunção in regards to him getting the next title shot, and there is some absolutely solid debate from the other side with Marlon Moraes, and I think the UFC have done the right thing by pairing these two again, creating that rematch because the first one was a close fight, creating the rematch, putting it over 5 rounds, and saying, here's your 5 rounds. Let's see which one of you is ready for the bantamweight championship. And I'm pretty sure the UFC has unofficially told both of them that the winner is going to get that next shot. Now, what's interesting is what the UFC have done in that situation is absolutely correct, 100%. You couldn't make a strong enough argument for either Assunção or Moraes to skip this fight and get a straight title shot. Against TJ Dillashaw. So by doing this takes that argument out of it and guarantees a title shot for the number one contender, which is absolutely what we want to see and the absolute right structure to take when a fighter should be getting a title shot. However, a spanner has been thrown in the works with Henry Cejudo knocking TJ Dillashaw out. Now Henry Cejudo wants to come up and challenge for the title, and technically, if he comes up to bantamweight, he probably should join the back of the queue, so to speak. But then again, he's just knocked out the bantamweight champion in round one. So, there's an argument there for that side. So, for me, I almost feel that this bantamweight title sort of scenario is going to end up getting as messy as what we've seen with the featherweight and the lightweight belts in the recent past. So, what do you think's going to happen, John?
Yeah, I'm with you with that last statement that you made. Like, the titles seem to be getting messy these days, which I think is what has aggrieved some fans of the sport because of how messy the titles are getting. I know you see a lot of fighters now when they win the belt, they just want that super fight straight away, and they'll like hold out for the big money fights and things like that. And I don't really think fighters are in a position to do that until they have got a few title defenses under their belt. And yeah, it's going to be bad for the division for me if Cejudo fights TJ Dillashaw next for the bantamweight title. I mean, I'm as interested in anyone as seeing whether Cejudo can replicate what he did in their flyweight belt in a bantamweight, but it just stacks the division up so much that, like, what do you do with the winner of this fight then if that happens? I mean, Cejudo against Dillashaw happens for the bantamweight title. So when does that happen? What, 3 or 4 months time maybe? So then that means the winner of Assunção Moraes has got to sit out then for at least 8-10 months after this fight, or fight someone in between and risk that number one slot. And I mean, people have been Aston Sau's been levying for that title shot for a while now, and again, people from the Moraes camp have been doing the same after his last two performances. And I think you're right in putting these two against each other again for that number one spot. But for me, for me, one of these guys has got to fight TJ Dillashaw next. Whether we see the Cejudo against Dillashaw fight later down the line, if Dillashaw defeats the winner of this, then so be it. Because I mean, when you look outside of these two guys, you've got Cody Garbrandt. He's not going to be getting a title shot anytime soon.
Well, Cody Garbrandt's scheduled to fight Pedro Munoz anyway, so
yeah. And he won't be getting a shot at Dillashaw anytime soon. Even if he beats Munoz, I'd imagine he needs another at least 2 wins after Munoz before he fights, if Dillashaw's still got the belt. Dominic Cruz, he's banged up. He's injured. I think it was his shoulder. Jimmy Rivera obviously lost to Moraes.
John Lineker,
Aljamain Sterling. You're going down to those kinds of guys now, and yeah, I wouldn't mind as much seeing the winner of this fight against Dillashaw, and if Dillashaw wins that fight, then we see the Cejudo fight at bantamweight.
I think the thing you've got to take into consideration is the flyweight division. I think ultimately, I think ultimately this decision on the flyweight division will decide what happens in the bantamweight division, because I know this is going to digress slightly, but if anybody was watching the UFC London presser earlier on, I was very interested in the comments that Darren Till made regarding moving up to middleweight and staying at welterweight, and basically they'd offered him some fights up at middleweight and he accepted, but then the UFC said, actually, no, you've got unfinished business at welterweight, so let's match you up against Jorge Masvidal. So basically what that tells me is the UFC are also very mindful and influencing where they think a fighter should go as well.
Yeah.
Now, I think if the UFC decides to keep the flyweight division, they're definitely going to say to Henry Cejudo, look, we're keeping the division. You've got what you want. Now defend your belt. Like, don't go up to bantamweight, because that holds a division up now. So if the UFC keep the flyweight division, I think they'll force Henry Cejudo to get a couple of title defences at bantamweight, or at least do what you've just said. Wait until TJ Dillashaw's cleaned out the division a little bit more, and then you can match him for the rematch at 135. If the UFC stick to what we believe is their initial decision, and the flyweight division is no more, then Henry Cejudo, who's the flyweight champion, is going to need a new home, which is going to be at 135 pounds. So at that point, I think we are going to see Cejudo and TJ. Yeah,
definitely. I think we will see it at some point, but yeah, I don't want to see personally. I don't want to see it being the next fight in the for the bantamweight title. I'd like to see the winner of this fight get that shot of the belt, and then go from there.
I totally agree. Yeah. And finally, as always, we're going to discuss the potential fights that could earn a fight of the night or performance of the night bonus. So, John, who have you got for this one, man?
Yeah, this is
it's a tough one.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Yeah, because I'm kind of going to have to go against some of my picks if in certain circumstances. I mean, knockout of the night, I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny Walker knocked out Justin Ledet. I know I picked Ledet to win that fight, but I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny Walker knocked him out. And usually it's brutally if he finishes people. So if that does happen, then I wouldn't be surprised if he gets one of the performance of the night bonuses. Then you've got obviously Charles Oliveira or Damian Maia. Again, I've picked David Taymor against Charles Oliveira, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Oliveira got a submission win, and he usually picks up a performance of the night bonus when he gets those submission wins, as with Damian Maia. So either one of those. So I'm going to go with Damian Maia, because obviously you picked David Taymor to win the fight over Charles Oliveira. I'm going to go with Damian Maia for the performance of the night bonus. I believe he'll submit Lyman good and pick up a bonus. And then the fight of the night's tough. It could be the main event. It could also be the co-main event. I could see that being a very good fight as well. But I'm going to go with it being the co-main event. I think Aldo against Moicano is going to be a really good fight, and I think it's going to be like I mentioned in the breakdown. I think it's going to be one of those fights where Aldo gets the better of the first 2 rounds, and then Moicano comes on strong late on, and it's a real back and forth. And yeah, so I think that's going to get the. I'm going to go with that for the fight of the night in this one.
Cool. So for me, for fight of the night, in fact, no, I'll leave fight of the night last. The performance of the night, I'm going to go with Renato Moicano. I think he's going to put on a solid performance. I do think he gets a stoppage against Aldo, and I think if he does stop Aldo and he does look really good out there, I don't see any reason why or how he shouldn't get a performance of the night bonus for that. The other one I'm going to go for is Livia Renata Souza. I think she'll get a submission. I think she'll look pretty good on the ground as well. I think she'll look pretty slick, and beating a 9-0 girl coming from that Contender Series Brazil, I think that'll be enough to win a performance of the night bonus. And for fight of the night, this is one that's going to probably shock and surprise everyone, but I'm going for the 2 newcomers, man. I'm going for Geraldo de Freitas against Felipe Colares. I genuinely think that's going to be a really great, fun, back and forth fight. I think there's going to be a lot of aggression. There's going to be a lot of shots landed. They might even get dropped a couple of times and bounce back up. I think we're going to see takedowns. I think we're going to see scrambles. I think we're just going to see it all in that fight. And like I say, it's going to surprise a lot of people, but I'm really excited for that fight. I think they both match up really well, and I think they'll put on a performance and earn themselves a £50,000 bonus each. And that's the lot for this week's podcast, guys. For the bets this week at UFC Fortaleza, don't forget to check out the premium bets from Newsome MMA and the membership options available too at newsomemma.co.uk/premium-bets. So, John, before we hit the Newsome MMA 2-minute plug, what have you got to mention, man?
Yeah, as always, I'm hoping to be a bit more active with some of the content I'm getting out now. So check it out on the with yourself on the Newsome MMA website, on over at Fight Post, and catch up with me on Twitter at MMA&me. Always like to talk fights with anyone and get involved with the good old fight discussions.
Awesome. Now for the quick Newsome MMA 2-minute plug. First of all, I'd like to talk about Concussion Pro 1, who are partnering Newsome MMA. Concussion Pro 1 is the world's first dedicated concussion supplement supporting brain health and performance. The product is honestly groundbreaking, and there isn't another supplement on the market like it. The unique formula that makes up Concussion Pro 1 has been developed and created by some of the world's most decorated sports scientists to help protect and support the brain in its performance. Approved by the UK Mixed Martial Arts Federation, Concussion Pro 1 provides some amazing support to the brain. It increases mental performance, faster recovery from injury, reduced inflammation post-impact, improved neural protection, and much more. With professional athletes such as Alexander Rakic, Mark Diakese, and Scott Askham using Concussion Pro 1, you can already see how vital this product is, not only for MMA but for all combat sports. Find out more information by clicking on any of the banners on the Newsome MMA website or go to concussionpro1.com. Secondly, please check out the sponsors of Newsome MMA, which is CBD Life UK. I'm a great case study for CBD. In the MMA gambling world, people often talk about sweats and nerves as they're watching the fight that they've bet on fight. These feelings are absolutely real, and because of this I vape CBD to help relax me on fight night. And if I'm honest, I didn't think it would make much of a difference, but it really does, and I would honestly recommend it to anybody. You can access the offers from my sponsorship by clicking on any of the banners on the Newsome MMA website, and you can also get 15% off your first order by using promo code Newsome MMA. And that's it from us, guys. Enjoy the fights on Saturday night, and we will see you next week.
Enjoy. Thank you.